Good morning. If the board members could please take their seats. Yvette. I would like to call to order the December 15th, 2022 TPA Governing Board meeting. Staff, could you please call the roll so we can establish our quorum today?
At this time, I am only asking those board members attending in person to respond by saying "here" when I call your name. As a reminder, you can unmute your microphones by pushing the bottom on the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TPA Governing Board member representative. Steve Wilson.
Here.
Yvette Drucker.
Here.
The City of Boynton Beach. Angela Cruz is absent. Shelley Petrolia.
Julie Cassell for Shelley Petrolia.
Thank you. Joel Flores.
Present.
Jim Kretzky.
Present.
Ronaldo Diaz.
Present.
Joni Brinkman.
Here.
The Port of Palm Beach is absent. Greg Weiss.
Here.
Maria Sachs. Maria Marino.
Here.
Marcy Woodward.
Here.
Mac Bernard.
Here.
Shirley Lanier. Fred Pinto.
Here.
Michael Napleone.
Here.
Christy Fox.
Here.
Joseph Peduzzi.
Christina Lambert in place of Commissioner Joe Peduzzi.
Chelsea Reed.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Amanda. All right, we're going to move on to the invocation. We've asked Mayor Wilson to please give us the invocation today, and following that, we'll lead in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you please stand with me? Good morning, everybody. Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we come to you once again with bowed heads and humble hearts. Thank you, as always, for your grace and your mercy. Realizing, Father, that over and over again, that through your grace and your mercy, you've been better to us than we've been to ourselves. And with that, we say thank you. Thank you, Father, for loving us and forgiving us. You paid a debt we couldn't pay, and you gave us a gift we couldn't buy. And with that, we say thank you. Father, we proclaim your name above all names. You're Alpha and Omega. You're the beginning and the ending. You are a bridge over troubled waters. You're that doctor in the sick room. You're that judge in the courtroom. You are a lily in the valley. You are a bright and morning star. And we say thank you. And finally, Father, we ask a special prayer for our chairperson. Father, you know our heart. And all of us whom you have allowed to be assembled here today, realizing that we're no strangers with each other, just perhaps friends we have not yet met. We give you all the praises and the glory. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible.
Amanda, are there any modifications to our agenda today?
Yes, Madam Chair. We are requesting modification to item 4B to state next meeting, February 16th, 2023. No January meeting. The updated agenda has been provided.
All right, and do we have anyone participating remotely today?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so I'm seeking a motion to adopt the modified agenda, please. Moved
Second.
by Mayor Flores, second by Councilmember Napleone. And so all in favor? Any opposed? Moving along to general public comments. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Staff, do we have any general comments that have been received today?
Yes, Madam Chair. There is one general public comment. This was submitted online by Fran Nackles. They write, "I'm writing to you to let you know that I am in favor of TPA grant funding approximately $1.5 million to the Boca Raton 18th Street Sidewalk Project. I was informed that the funding may be redirected away from this project to a state project. I ask you to keep the funding in place for the 18th Street project, rated number 1 on your list for 2022 local initiatives. Thank you. Fran.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We always love to hear from the community. That's great. Moving along, we're going to move on to comments from the chair and member comments. If you guys would indulge me, I'd like to take a moment to thank our TPA governing board members who are no longer sitting up here with us. So we've got our previous chair, former Mayor Robert Weinroth, Commissioner Melissa McKinley, Boca Raton Council Member Andy Thompson, and Port Commissioner Catherine Waldron. We wish them all luck and thank them so much for their time and service. I also want to take a moment to thank everybody who serves on our advisory boards. They take up a lot of time and we appreciate everything that they do. I would also like to welcome our new TPA governing board members. We have Palm Beach County Commissioners Marcy Woodward from District 4 and Mac Bernard, who has been here as an alternate before and has now come onto the board. I'm happy to welcome you. And not here today, but that will be joining us occasionally will be Commissioner Sarah Baxter, who is going to be our alternate for the county as well. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves? Mac?
No.
All right. Commissioner Woodward, would you like to say hello this morning?
Yes. Hi, I'm Marcy Woodward, representing District 4, Southeast Palm Beach County. I was just sworn in November 22nd, so thank you all. This is my first sitting new board appointment meeting. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you for taking the time to introduce yourself. We appreciate that. Are there any other board member comments and items that are not on the agenda? Monica Mayotte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a note that my name wasn't called during the roll call. I'm here since Andy Thompson, as you just mentioned, is no longer on the council, so I'm the alternate for him today.
Thank you so much. All right, Amanda will note that. Thank you very much. Any other comments before we move? I think we have another public comment that came in. If you could please read it.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to invite Wen Dang to make her comment at the podium.
Good morning, you're recognized.
Okay, good morning. Hi, good morning. My name is Wen Dang. I'm a transportation engineer. I'm actually here on behalf of the city of West Palm Beach. And we'd like to say happy holidays and also to inform this board of the city's railway safety initiatives. We are kicking off this holiday season with the 12 Days of Railway Safety campaign. If you frequent downtown West Palm Beach, you've probably seen some of the signage and stencils and installations that has been out already. We're kicking off with a lot of PSA messaging online. Please tag us. Please let each other know that if you see tracks, think of the train. And just to really summarize what our initiatives are, and it's really focused and adopting the principle of Vision Zero, starting with engineering, education, and enforcement. And with this education campaign, we also, our police department have been out citing for illicit behavior. And since we have been citing, we've received over 50 traffic stops that were conducted. 43 of them are citations and 6 warnings were issues. Of course, the citation and warnings are ranged from people stopping on the tracks, failing to obey railroad bars, so some of those who cross under, and then, of course, running a red light along railroad crossings itself. So, in addition to that, we've also made several contacts with pedestrians who attempt to walk under the railroad arms, especially in the downtown area. So we kicked off this campaign last week, and it was such a pleasure because we have several members on this board that attended. And also we have our partners with FDOT and the SFRTA that also attended with us along with the FRA. So, and again, it's a very, very important message along this holiday season, and we invite you to join us and get the message out. If you see tracks, think train and do not idle. Get off and be safe. Thank you.
Real quick, what do we tag you with? What are the?
Hashtag WPB railroad safety.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Are there any other public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we're going to move along to our Executive Director's report, and we have Executive Director Valerie Nielsen.
Good morning, everyone. Apologies for my voice, but I also want to echo the chair's comments. Welcome to our new members and thank you to our former members that are no longer with us. I also want to recognize, it's not on my director's report, but we have, I want to welcome Executive Director David Deck, our new director, not so new now, he's been there a couple months, but from South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, Tri-Rail. He's here with us today. Would you like to say hello or anything to the board? Sure. Is it on?
I got it now. Okay. It's very nice to meet everybody. My name is Dave Deck. I've been here since August. I am thrilled to be here. I apologize that it took me a little while to come up here and meet everybody. Everybody's explaining to me, there's very important partners and you guys are key to that. So I do apologize that it took me a little bit to get up here. I'm trying to meet all the new people and all new faces and all new places and everything else. But I do look forward very much to working in partnership with everyone here. And if there's anything that we can do to help, anything that I can do to help, please do not hesitate to reach out. I can give contact numbers or we can work through Valerie or however you'd like. But it has been a wonderful and very refreshing, warm welcome by everybody that I've met here in South Florida. And I do appreciate that on behalf of myself and my family. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to have you. David Deck comes from Austin, Texas, from Cap Metro, which is one of our peers that we look to as an example. So we are excited to have his expertise and over 20 years of experience with CSX as well. So very excited for our region. Thank you for joining us. I also want to welcome 2 new staff members, Nathan George as our new long-range transportation planner and lead planner, who's come here. He has a background from Washington, D.C. and also in Texas. So we're excited to have him. And as well, we also want to welcome Clive Burt as our new staff accountant, a new position that the TPA created this year. We're excited to have him as well. And he's a local. So thank you. If you haven't checked it out, we do have a new website, a new refresh to our website. Our PR team has worked really hard on that. Melissa and Cassidy have been working on that over the last year with our consultant. So we're very excited about that. We hope you find it more user-friendly. If you have any comments, please share them with us. We just wrapped up the Love to Ride Florida Challenge. We're excited to announce that the TPA was #1 in the state for its agency size. Staff rode over almost 900 miles. So that was really exciting. And thank you for everyone who participated in that. Also, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, also known as MAD, we wanted to just raise awareness of their holiday campaign, encouraging everyone to have a plan if you're celebrating the holidays and it involves alcohol. There's a hashtag for that. Tie one on for safety, and they have ribbons to tie that on for bicycles. And as Ms. Dang mentioned, West Palm Beach is doing a campaign. The TPA joined for a press release for that to see Tracks Think Train. We really applaud them for their leadership in raising awareness and education on safety for rail. Also on the dais, there is a flyer for the 2023 Safe Street Summit. This is the 10th annual Safe Street Summit event that's put on by the Broward, Miami, and Palm Beach TPA, the 3 MPOs in South Florida, to raise awareness about safety with national and international speakers. It's an opportunity to bring everyone together. We really encourage everyone to attend. Today is actually the last day for early bird registration, so please help us promote the word. Also, December 23rd is the last day to nominate local communities and champions, as well as projects for Safe Streets Awards. So we really hope to get nominations for our county for that event. And we encourage all of you to please register to attend. Board members are free, so you just have to indicate that you're a board member at registration, and we hope that you will join us. The main event is on February 3rd. And then there's also mobile tours on February 2nd, and it's in Hollywood, Florida. We're very excited that Boca Raton will be opening a new Brightline station very, very soon. Ali Soul will be joining us shortly, and she will have a announcement to make on that. She'll be presenting on rail safety. It's the first item on our agenda, so hopefully we're able to get to that soon and you can hear about that. Also, we have our pre-application meetings, basically our call for projects this year for fiscal year 29 and also for TA fiscal year 27. Just a reminder for that, and applications are due February 17th. FDOT is also having several grant information sessions in January and February for additional discretionary grants under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We encourage everyone to attend, staff members to attend. These are opportunities for local communities to apply to these grants for transportation infrastructure and safety. Finally, we are encouraging our local communities and businesses to apply for bicycle-friendly designations. The TPA is a bicycle-friendly business, silver. We have a silver designation right now. It just encourages being more friendly for bicycling for your employees and for your visitors. So I encourage you to check that out. We also, we had a peer exchange planned for last fall in September. The date to actually go visit Austin, Texas, but that was rescheduled because the date was when the hurricane hit. So we do have new dates for that. We'll be going in April. And lastly, just want to remind everyone to please check out our conferences page. We do encourage our board members to attend transportation conferences and support that. So with that, that's my director's report. And next, we want to take a group picture with everyone because we have a lot of several new faces. And I'd like to ask everyone to gather around in the middle of the room and create 2 rows for a group picture for the TPA.
Before we do
Yes.
that, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Fox had a card up.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say a quick thank you so much to Wendang for being here today on behalf of West Palm Beach and for all that were involved in last week's press conference, including Ms. Nielsen. Thank you for being there. Mayor Weiss, many others that are in this room from SFRT and from Ali Sewell was there from Brightline and many others. It's very important that we have so many stakeholders at the table helping us with this campaign. So it is very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. If everyone will just quickly gather for a group picture of the board in the middle.
All right. Just to finish up, do we have any of our board that would like to comment on anything that our executive director just shared with us? All right, so thank you so much, you guys. That picture is going to be great. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to go onto the website, but I think it's extraordinary. It's updated in real time. So each day you can click to see the meetings. It's been wonderful. Thank you guys for your hard work on that. All right. Photo. Going to move on to consent. Is anyone pulling anything off of the consent agenda today? All right. Oh, okay, great. What have you got, Greg?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pull items 6 and 7 because I think it's important for the public to know what was in those items. It's just if we could have a very brief review of what the changes are being proposed for the operations.
Roger, would you like to address that?
Sure. These items were brought to the executive committee. Number 6 is charging whoever is the chair and vice chair of the TPA governing board will also serve as the main representative and the alternate at this regional and statewide level. At the statewide level in the MPOAC, there is a governing board that consists of one board member from each of the MPOs across the state. It's normally the chair or the vice chair. So we wanted to make that consistent. And the same with SEFTEC, the Southeast Florida Transportation Council. This is made up of 3 board members, one of each of the MPOs from the 3 South Florida MPOs, and it's usually the chair or vice chair. So we wanted to make that consistent for our board versus running a separate election for that. And that was amenable to the executive committee. On number 7, adoption of the revising the executive committee charge. There was no major change to the charge. It was just refining it so that it was said in less words, I guess. But if you'd like, we could bring that up to the up on the screen. The only key change was that it does charge the executive committee to also conduct the executive director's annual evaluation.
And if I could speak to item H6, the governing board meetings, SEFTEC meetings, and MPOAC meeting dates were included in everybody's agenda packet. If you're considering becoming chair or vice chair, I highly recommend you take a moment now and look at your calendar to make sure you're available for all of these dates. I was this past year, I think alternate 2 for most of these. And because of scheduling, the folks that were appointed couldn't make it. And sometimes I'd find out just days ahead, and one would be in Tallahassee. You know, I'd find out Monday afternoon that the person who was supposed to go couldn't go. And I was trying to find a way to get to Tallahassee on a Wednesday morning with about 36 hours notice, which is, we were able to cover. We made sure we had representation, but we want consistent representation. So if you're considering it, please, these dates matter. We need consistent representation for the TPA, especially for SEFTEC, because that's our regional council, and having the same person come, because it's only 4 times a year, is really, really important. So consider that before you throw your hat in the ring for anything. And then I do believe the other ones were mostly just housekeeping. If there are any other questions. No, seeing none, we'll move on. I'm going to need a motion and a second, please, to approve the consent agenda. All right. I have a motion from Fred Pinto and a second from Joel Flores. Thank you guys so much. Moving along, the next action item is the motion to elect the TPA officer for the calendar year of 2023. Pursuant to section 2.2A of the TPA's operating procedures, the officers of the TPA shall consist of a chair, a vice chair, and 3 at-large representatives of the governing board. Together, the officers shall be referred to as the executive committee. Not more than 2 of the officers may be county commissioners. Section 2.2B of the TPA's operating procedures states, the officers shall be elected annually at the last regularly scheduled meeting of the calendar year. The newly elected officers shall take office at the first regularly scheduled meeting of the following calendar year. If it passes as stated in the agenda item 1H6 per section 2.2E of the TPA's operating procedures, the chair and vice chair shall serve as the MPOAC and SEFTEC representatives and alternate respectively, and attend on behalf of the TPA. Palm Beach Gardens Mayor Chelsea Reed is the current chair, and vice chair is currently vacant. City of Green Acres Mayor Joel Flores, Palm Beach County Commissioner Maria Marino, and Village of Wellington Councilmember Michael Napoleon currently serve on the TPA Executive Committee. Personally, I have asked for our TPA General Counsel to manage this election process, to remove any bias and for complete transparency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For those of you that are looking at me and wondering what happened, I can tell you I've learned a new lesson. Do not get in a fight with your wife. She won. No, just kidding. I was moving a refrigerator over the weekend and slipped and fell and bought myself a trip to the emergency room for some stitches and a black eye. So I'm glad to be here today. Section 2.2.c specifies that the chair must have served on the TPA governing board as a representative for a minimum of 1 year prior to taking office. All officers must have completed the MPOAC Institute training program for elected officials, attended a National Association of MPOs AMPO conference, or received similar training. The training criteria can be waived by majority vote of the TPA governing board if you're so inclined. A list of the TPA board representatives that have completed the requisite training will be presented by staff. The next MPOAC Institute training will take place in spring of 2023. Before proceeding, staff, are there any public comments on this item?
Not at this time.
Okay, in that case, we'll want to go ahead and open nominations for the position of TPA chair. First, I'd like to ask Mayor Reed, our current chairman, you're eligible to run again. Are you, if you were elected, are you interested in serving?
With pleasure.
Okay. So we'll now open nominations, and of course, nominations do not require a second. Are there any nominations?
Chelsea Reed.
I didn't see who did that. Was that Commissioner Marino? Nominated Chelsea Reed. All right. Any other nominations? Going once, twice, three times, seeing none. Without objection, we'll go ahead and close nominations. All those in favor of Ms. Reed signify by voting aye.
Aye.
And congratulations. The next position will be the office of TPA Vice Chair, which is currently vacant. So I'll now open the floor for nominations.
I nominate Commissioner Maria Marino.
Okay, Mayor Weiss nominates Commissioner Marino. Anybody, any other nominations? Going once, twice, three times, seeing no more. Without objection, nominations are now closed. All those in favor of Commissioner Marino, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Hey, congratulations and welcome back to the officer position. For those of you who don't know, Commissioner Marino was previously our chairman at one point. Yep. Now we'll go to the board positions, and there are 3 board positions. We'll take each one one at a time. The first board position is held by Mayor Flores. Mayor Flores, if nominated and elected, would you be interested in serving again? Absolutely. Okay. Nominations are now open for seat number 1. Okay, Commissioner Marino nominates Mayor Flores. Any other nominations? Going once, twice, 3 times? This is what I like, is everybody saying. Without objection, nominations are now closed. All those in favor of Mayor Flores for seat number 1 on the executive committee, please vote aye.
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 Okay, the second position, seat number 2, is currently held by Councilman Napoleon from Wellington. Councilman, if nominated and elected, would you be interested in serving again?
Yes, I would.
Okay, Councilman Napoleon is available if you're interested. Nominations are now open.
And Paul, since you can't see me because of the poll, I will nominate Councilmember Napoleone.
There's something about poll and elections. Never mind.
And I'm on the canvassing board, so go figure.
Commissioner Marino nominates Councilman Napoleon. Are there any other nominations? Going once, twice, 3 times? Seeing none, without objection, nominations are now closed. All those in favor, Councilman Napoleon for seat number 2 on the executive committee signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Okay, and seat number 3 was occupied by Commissioner Marino. So we have a vacancy for seat number 3. Nominations are now open for that position.
Can you bring back up the slide that had those that had qualified? Thank you.
That leaves 3 people.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Fred Pinto.
Okay, Commissioner Sachs nominates Mayor Pinto. Any other nominations? Seeing going once.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Steve Wilson.
Okay.
I think he does a tremendous job.
Mayor Flores nominates Mayor Wilson from Belle Glade. All right, any other nominations? Going once, twice, 3 times, seeing none, without objection, nominations are now closed. Let's go ahead and have a roll call on this and vote for either Mayor Pinto or Mayor Wilson.
I'd like to say if Mayor Wilson is interested in serving, I'm okay with that. Okay.
This is like the nicest board. Everybody gets along. It's all good, most of the time.
Well, if that's the case, I will be on it. Thank you.
Okay, so are you withdrawing then? Okay, so the only nominations are now closed. And the only nominee is Mayor Pinto. All those in favor of Mayor Pinto, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
And I congratulate you, Mayor Pinto. I believe that does it, and I will now at this time return the gavel to Chair Reed.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you managing that for us. I'm so proud of our board. Well done. Got your
Just-
microphone? Yes. go
Yes,
ahead.
congratulations to
You're
the board. So I really wanted to run for the executive board. I don't have the appropriate training because I haven't had it for COVID for 2 years. So that kind of kept the slate very empty. So my goal is to go to that training. As all of you know, I've been very active the last 2 years. I'm really loving the whole transit thing. So Valerie, if that doesn't happen again, because I was scheduled to go, and then obviously it didn't happen, then we might have to look at that for moving forward. If they're not offering it, then it's always good to have new leaders that have not served on the executive board. And, you know, we only have the slate and it's the same people because we can't do the training. So I think it presents, you know, a future discussion. So I just wanted to put that comment out there.
Thank you. And what we've heard from the MPOAC, that the next MPOAC Institute training is scheduled for March, April. We're waiting to hear the exact dates. We'll let everyone know as soon as possible. And also the National AMPO conference in the fall. We'll let everyone know those dates so you can save the date because that also counts and we can reimburse for that. So there will definitely be an opportunity or 2 this year.
Madam Chair, if I could, I also happen to serve as counsel to the MPOAC, and I want to tell you, I just recommend to you, all of you, if you have any interest and any time to work with our executive director to get on the list of people to attend the MPOAC Institute in the spring. They haven't held it in the last couple of years because of COVID, number one. And number two, they've held it over many, many years. And I can tell you, everybody, elected officials that I've talked to that's attended it has really positive remarks to say about it. It's a really, it's worth the time. Let's put it that way. Thank you.
I had also one more comment. We are, as part of our strategic plan, we're planning to do a training similar to the MPOAC Institute in the next quarter. We're putting together a training that covers a lot of the similar information, and we're going to count that as also to count as a MPO training. So we're also going to do a training here at the MPO as well, led by staff, but using the MPOAC material. So I just remembered that as well. So that's going to be coming up soon and we'll be sharing the date. So a couple opportunities for everyone.
All right. Anyone else? No? Well, if you'll indulge me, I'm honored to have your confidence that the TPA has been a part of my life now for almost 6 years. I was on the Citizens Advisory for 2 years and wound up as vice chair on that right before I was elected. And coming on the board was a tremendous honor. I never imagined I'd be sitting up here. So it's a pleasure to represent our county and to work with all of you. As you can see by the voting process, this is collaborative process. And we all have a great ability to not always agree on things, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to represent our 1.5 million residents beautifully. And I can see around me that every single person here takes it seriously, is full of integrity, and it's an honor to serve with you. So let's move on. We have a fun agenda today. We're going to start with item B, which is our motion to adopt a resolution approving the TIP amendment number 2 to the TPA's fiscal year. This is our transportation improvement program, and I'd like to call Jason Price to please present.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone this morning and a number of new faces. My name is Jason, as Mayor Chelsea Reed had mentioned. I'm the TIP coordinator for the TPA. Today, I'm going to present to you amendment number 2 to the Transportation Improvement Program. And the Transportation Improvement Program, for all of those that are new, it's a 5-year working document that lists all of the projects that will be constructed throughout Palm Beach County. And it covers the 5 years that it covers is 2023 through 2027. This particular amendment number 2, is at the request of FDOT to add funding and modify the length of 4 different projects. And I'll go over all 4 of those projects in this presentation. So amendments come to you for specific reasons. To make changes to the Transportation Improvement Program, certain changes require an amendment to come before all of the committees and the governing board. And in this particular case, of these 4 projects, either one of the 2 cases have occurred. Either the cost increased more than 20% and $2 million, or the length has changed of a project by half a mile and 20%. So one of 2 of those cases have occurred with these 4 projects warranting an amendment. And with amendments, only the projects that you'll be voting on today, and this is an action item that will require a vote at the end of the presentation and discussion. So when you take this action, you're only impacting these projects that I will be presenting. In the Transportation Improvement Program, there's hundreds of projects that are listed, and by taking this action, you're only impacting the projects that are presented today. So starting with the very first project, this is I-95 at Indian Town Road. And the request here is to add funds and both change the length of this particular project. The length change is minor. It's approximately 1.1 miles to about 1.4 miles. So it is a slightly longer project being added. And then to accommodate this change, and all of these projects are being changed because of construction cost increases and inflation over the course of moving these projects forward. That's been the reason listed by FDOT. And so to accommodate these changes for the reasons stated, we're seeing an added design phase, an added right-of-way phase, and an added environmental phase, as well as adding American Rescue Plan Act funding in about $9.7 million to the construction cost of this particular project. So here I'm illustrating to you, and it might not be the easiest slide to read, but for illustrative purposes, what I'm showing here today is in the top part is the existing Transportation Improvement Program project. So that's what it looks like in our current active programmed Transportation Improvement Program. And the proposed changes with those additional phases that I mentioned, the design phase, the right-of-way phase, and the environmental phase, all of those phases are being added, and those are the ones highlighted. There's a number of other things highlighted here because of the cost increases for this project due to the construction cost increases and inflation. Now, all of these projects have very similar looks, but I'm only showing this illustration for the first project just for the benefit of the new members here, so you can see what the TIP document looks like. If you go to our website and you look at the TIP document, over 100 pages are going to look exactly like this. They're going to list all of the projects and give you the 5-year outlook between 23 and 27 to show you where the funding is being allocated for those particular years, the phases that are being completed in those years, as well as the funding sources. Now, the next 3 projects are all resurfacing projects, and I'll go through each one of them, and you'll see that there's a map for each one of these projects as well. So this second project is State Route 80 from US 27 to east of Glades Glen Road. And this project both adds funds to the project as well as changes the length. So the length changes similar, where it's about 2.6 miles and it's shortened slightly to 2.1 miles. And the changes here financially are adding a design phase as well as increasing the construction cost to $6 million, including the added local funds to that particular construction cost. The second of the 3rd resurfacing projects is State Route 15 from north of First Street to the Palm Beach County, Martin County line. And this only adds additional funds to this project, as I mentioned before, for construction cost increases and inflation. And this adds a design phase, as well as increasing the construction cost that includes local funds. And the total is about $4.24 million. There's also additional advanced construction funding that's added to this project. And advanced construction funding is state funding that the FDOT applies to these particular projects. And the final project of the 4 projects and the last resurfacing project is State Route 7 from north of Southern Boulevard to Okeechobee Boulevard. And this both adds funds to the project as well as changes the lengths very slightly. So it's the current length of the project is 2 miles and it is shortened to 1.9 miles. And the increase in construction cost phase is about $2.29 million, which also includes local funds. And lastly, the additional advanced construction funds, as I mentioned before, that's state funds that FDOT uses to accommodate the increase in cost for this particular project. So in total, those are all 4 of the projects that are included in this particular amendment. And at this point, I'm looking for a motion to adopt amendment number 2, and I'll take any questions at this time.
Mayor Koretsky, you're recognized.
Yes, first of all, I'm very grateful for the item on Indian Town Road. It's one we've been pushing for a decade, and the town is doing some funding toward it. But in the presentation, you talked about changing the length, and I don't see in the description what that change length is, although I do see in the pictorial that it goes to Central Boulevard. I'm hoping that's the case, but I'm not seeing that in the proposed tip language for description. It appears to match exactly what exists now. So I just want to understand what it is.
I can give you the project details of what's programmed to occur.
Well, you say you were changing the length, so my answer is kind of specific. What new length is being added?
Right, at what leg or end of the project?
I think it's being added, it shows it going to Central Boulevard, but the description doesn't say that. And we've been trying to get that to happen. So I'm hoping I can confirm good news, but
I could follow up with you and find out exactly, because what I know about this particular project, that there is added auxiliary lanes or merge lanes to this project. So some of this length could be additional merge lane.
and that's what I'm expecting, but the Central Boulevard is shown, but it's not shown in the write-up.
Okay,
Talking about the FDOT sheet. right?
sure, yeah.
Same description. So if you could get
Yeah,
back. again.
I can follow up with them and get the very specifics of what is the nature of the length change to see what is being added specifically and follow up with you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pinto, you're recognized.
Yeah, if you give a little more detail on the project, State Road 7 project, Okeechobee Boulevard to Southern Boulevard, exactly what's going to happen there. I have a similar question. It says lengthen, but what's really we're going to see there?
It's a resurfacing
It's
project.
primarily resurfacing.
Yes, it's only a resurfacing
Okay, so
project.
there's no additional entrance exits, off ramps, anything
No,
like that?
no.
Okay,
No additions to the project, just
So
a sim-
I guess
just
the
a
timeline has
straightforward-
come to resurface that road there. Okay, good, thanks.
Sure.
All right. Okay, Commissioner Fox?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if any additional projects were being, I guess, taken off due to the funding that was given to these new projects, or where is the funding coming from?
Predominantly, the funding is coming from either additional local funds or advanced construction funds. And advanced construction funds is kind of a revolving bank account for FDOT, to where they'll use state funds to advance projects or fund current projects that are in fiscal year 23, and then seek reimbursement later on for federal dollars. And so it's not impacting any other projects. The additional cost is due to the construction cost increases and inflation, but they're able to accommodate this cost by applying additional funds. And there's additional funds for the very first project, American Rescue Plan Act funding. So there is a recent infusion of federal dollars that FDOT has received, and they're programming and applying that funding to Palm Beach County FDOT projects to accommodate those cost increases.
All right, Mayor Pinto, is your card still up, or
Oh, no,
did
I'm
you have a
sorry.
second comment?
I'm done.
All right, what I'd like to go ahead and work on a motion in a moment, but I do want to say for any of the municipalities or county projects that have resurfacing, that our members take a good look at those, because it's an opportunity to put in some added extras for mobility, some bike lanes or things like that. If you're going to repave the road anyway, why not add a couple more stripes? So just take a look at each project that's in your area, and FDOT has been very amenable to adding those in. So I would encourage everyone to do that as we go forward. So thank you, Jason. That was a great presentation. We appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm seeking a motion to adopt a resolution for approving the TIP Amendment number 2 to the TPA's fiscal year 23 to 27. We have no further discussion, so I'm looking for a motion. Okay, Mayor Flores, do I have a second?
Second.
Double seconded, so I will go with Mayor Pinto, and we do require a roll call vote for this. Amanda, would you be able to help with that, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Steve Wilson,
Aye.
Yvette Drucker,
Yes.
Monica Mayotte,
Yes.
Angela Cruz is absent, Shelley Petroli is alternate, Julie Casile,
Yes.
Joel Flores,
Yes.
Jim Koretsky,
Yes, thank you.
Ronaldo Diaz,
Yes.
Joni Brinkman.
Yes.
The Port of Palm Beach is vacant, so they will be marked as absent. Greg Weiss,
Yes.
Maria Sachs, Maria Marino, Marcy Woodward,
Yes.
Mac Bernard,
Yes.
Shirley Lanier is absent, Fred Pinto,
Yes.
Michael Napoleon,
Yes.
Christy Fox, Christina Lambert,
Yes.
Chelsea Reed.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. It is unanimous. Thank you very much, Jason. All right, moving along to our item C, which is the motion to adopt a resolution endorsing FDOT fiscal year 24 to 28 draft tentative work program, DTWP. I'd like to introduce our Andrew Euler from the TPA. He's our Deputy Director of Programs. If you could go ahead with the presentation, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'll first be going through the TPA's staff presentation on the draft tentative work program, and then we also have FDOT here in the Turnpike, who are going to have short presentations right after me. So I'm really going to highlight more the changes and the statuses we see for TPA priorities. Again, our mission is to collaboratively plan, prioritize, and fund the transportation system. At this part of the process, we've gone through the planning, the prioritization, so this is really get into the funding mechanism. So what is the draft tentative work program? The upcoming work program is for fiscal year 2024 to 2028. We're currently operating, as Jason mentioned in our tip, under fiscal year 2023. So what we're dealing with in this presentation and this item is 24 through 28. And you'll sometimes heard the outer year, year 28, known as the new fifth year of the program. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means. And I just wanted to make note that in this work program, you're going to see thousands of projects. I'm only going to be highlighting a few here, but many of these projects, especially the ones that are larger scale, go through a lot of different phases throughout production, right? So on the bottom of the screen, I show sort of a production schedule. It could have a study, it can go into design, it could have right away utilities and environmental phases, and then it could have construction. And really this could be over multiple years. And so why this is important is when we're looking at this draft tentative work program, what FDOT's really trying to do at this first look is to try to maintain stability of that production schedule for projects that are currently existing. So all the ones that are currently existing in TIP that are going forward into this draft tentative work program, they're trying to really maintain that production schedule. And then after that, they have some other needs as well when it comes to off the top, when it comes to ongoing operations and then also maintenance. And then after that, if there's also additional priorities you have, such as a TPA or major SIS capacity projects, that's when you'll start to see some newer projects fill in the remaining funding sources. And a lot of times that's in the new fifth year. So just a summary of what we're seeing in the draft tentative work program for Palm Beach County, about $3.1 billion. There's also additional district-wide projects that impact our county. So it's a major program for our district overall. A majority of the money you're going to see in the program, it goes towards that strategic intermodal system, that SIS capacity. That's our main trunk line of our system. So it's I-95, it's the turnpike. And you'll see on the screen here at this graphic that turnpike sources make up a lot of that money. So there's a lot of major turnpike construction going on in the upcoming 5 years. I'll be talking about a few funding sources. I'm not going to try to get too in the weeds on this, not to overcomplicate things, but the ones I did want to bring up just for you all are the ones that we as a metropolitan planning organization have direct prioritization over through our formula funding. So based on our population, we get these federal grants to Palm Beach County, to our urbanized area. And they include the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, transportation alternatives, and then carbon reduction program. So those funding sources, we have a policy to put towards our major programs that we have made here at the TPA, our local initiatives, and also transportation alternatives. And it's roughly around $30 million a year. So you're looking at about $150 million total in a work program. So going into how we sort of gotten to this point in the process for the draft tentative work program, it really all starts back at project development. So we have our long range transportation plan. There's products that come out of that, and that's where our programs are established for LI and TA. In those programs, we have product applications that come through. They go through a feasibility, and then we rank those projects. And that ranking occurs during our list of priority projects that you all adopted this past July. So in that list of priority projects, we break it down by our state road modifications, which are projects on a state roadway, typically using state gas taxes and other state revenue sources and some federal funds. Our local initiatives program, which is typically that surface transportation block grant program that I mentioned that we get from the federal government. And then transportation alternatives, also a federal source. So once that's passed in earlier on this year, July, FDOT works on that list along with other priorities they have in the district and also statewide. And they have their updated revenue streams, and then they have updated costs for all their projects. And so they're really working on how to maintain the stability of work program when it comes to production of that. And then they're providing the draft today for this work program. And so based on statutes, at this point in the process, what you're supposed to be doing here today is the district is supposed to provide a presentation to you all. And then this is your opportunity to endorse that draft tentative work program and provide your recommendations for changes, additions, or deletions of projects. And that's occurring now. And then next year, early on next year, they'll have the final work program. And that's really how we build our transportation improvement program. So they're one and the same for consistency. It'll cover the same funding years. So 24 through 28. And so our existing transportation improvement program, and this is just for you all to see sort of what those summaries look like. You'll see in our summary tables, not just in the draft tentative work program today for summary tables, but the same summary tables for our priorities are also showing in our list of priority projects and then also in our transportation improvement program. So this is the same format. You'll be seeing those summaries in the work program in all of our documents. Just some highlights from like what we currently have in our current tip. Pretty large amount of state road projects, 31, 23 local initiatives projects, and then 13 transportation alternatives projects. So going into the summary of what we've seen for highlights in the work program. The first ones I want to start with are the state road modifications. So the state road modifications, these are priorities that we have that we put on this list because they're on state roads, and the state revenue sources must be spent on state roads for the majority of those. So that's why we've created this specific priority list for state roads. We typically, this isn't direct funding that we oversee, but collaborating with FDOT, obviously there's a lot of other priorities going on in the district, but we typically would see around $101 million of federal and state funds allocated to this program over a 5-year period. That can change drastically program to program. Obviously, some of these are very large budget projects, and so they could really go up a lot more than that. Right now, we're seeing around $63 million of those funding sources that we typically would want to see towards state roads. We have about $63 million right now towards that of federal and state funding sources. What I want to make note of as well is that because of additional increases in cost on a lot of our projects, our priorities and also other projects in the district, there is some gaps there to cover. And so right now, what you see in this draft does have additional funds that we typically use for our local initiatives program. Those federal funds, they're prioritized also on some of these state roadways. And I'll mention a few more of those in a bit here. But the major ones for those are State Road 80 lighting has some of that funding on there, Atlantic Avenue widening, and also the State Road 7 extension. So some updates for the existing projects. The first two State Road 7 projects. The first one, 60th and North Lake Boulevard, has shown in this work program, it's delayed outside of fiscal year 2028, and it's showing an increase in cost to $87.5 million for construction. And then the southern piece, Okeechobee Boulevard to 60th Street, has been delayed to the new fifth year, fiscal year 2028, and that has also increased in cost to $39.6 million. The reasoning for these increases in cost and also delay, there was some scoping changes to the project for the design of some of the environmental situations, has been one portion of the increase in cost. And then also just increase in the cost overall for a lot of the items throughout the program. And then also when you push a product back 5 years, there's inflation factors that go into that. And so in the end, that's what you're seeing for those increases in cost. Why is it delayed to all the way to fiscal year 2028 and beyond? Well, the current ongoing litigation for that project has not been resolved yet. So once that has been resolved and there's a more firm production schedule that can be established, that's when we can start working towards getting that maybe prioritized early in the program. But that's really why there's a delay right now. And it can be really difficult, as I mentioned before, about sort of all these projects going through production. It can be really difficult to try to program that project out just a few years.
And Andrew, if I may, I just want to jump in on that as well. So as Andrew's mentioning, this draft tentative work program is our next, what we're looking at for the next 5 years, including the 4 years of already committed projects in our TIP and the new outer year. State road modifications, local initiatives, they're both TPA created programs, but there really are local priorities, whether they're on a state road or on a federally aid non-state road. The reason, unfortunately, the State Road 7 project, the number that you see on the left, 04, that means that it was prioritized in 2004. And then 2014, 2016, these are at the very top of the list of all those projects that we just saw on the other slide, all the things that are already committed. This project was slated to start this year, this fiscal year, and unfortunately, out of our control, it is in litigation. The hearing, what we've heard is at least 9 months until next October. And it's, in other words, it's kind of missed the boat for this year. So without All the other projects that are already in line are already under contract, under construction, under design. They're already in the pipeline underway. So it can't just push those projects out. And it can't avalanche everybody else who's already in line, including Atlantic Avenue, including Steroid 80 and all the other local priorities across our community. So the only other spot for it to go in the priority list is in the new outer year, unfortunately. And that does take up those local funds. And when we say local, we mean state and federal, but local priorities of our board. So whether it's on a state road or whether it's on a Fed aid eligible road, there still are local priorities. FDOT wouldn't be doing these projects on the state road unless we ask them to. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's why it's going into the new outer fifth year, because everybody else is already in line and underway. So it's very unfortunate, but just wanted to throw that clarification out.
Thank you, Valerie. And then for the remainder of these projects, Atlantic Avenue, just a status update, still on schedule for fiscal year 2024, the western portion, and then the eastern portions, 2027, and then another portion to the east is outside the work program. So, and this is sort of getting a little bit more in the weeds here, and I won't spend too much time on this, but here's the State Road 7 project. You can see the map on the right. As I mentioned, the increases in cost and outside of fiscal year 2028 for the northern portion, and that southern portion showing in fiscal year 2028. And then for those funding amounts, it's around a $39 million project. The local initiatives where you typically put that on other priorities, if possible, is shown at the top there, about $23 million. Atlantic Avenue, just want to show a map for you all. Again, that western portion starting in fiscal year 2024, and then those remaining portions starting a few years later. Other updates for state road modifications. Before I move on, we do have an additional study in there by FDOT. So you're going to be hearing today the final results of the Okeechobee Boulevard study from State Road 7 to US 1. The next portion of that after the TPA study is for FDOT to take it up, and they're going to be doing a feasibility study on some of those alternatives to occur in fiscal year 25. Another update for you all, as a priority project, we have a US 27 connector roadway out in the Glades area. It was just studied for feasibility. It's still an ongoing study. FDOT is wrapping that study up pretty soon here, and they can come to our committees and to you all with that update. But what you'll also see in that, just as a placeholders in an outer year in fiscal year 27, is additional preliminary product development. And then we had a series of design that was already programmed for a few products on our state roads list. So that's signals for Palm Beach County and Boca Raton, a sidewalk improvement on State Road 715, and then lighting on Congress Avenue. Those design phases moved up a year in the program. So they're all smaller amounts for design phases, and they all moved up to fiscal year 26. Other new projects, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but there's resurfacing jobs out there, new bridge projects. Steve Braun with FDOT is going to be covering a little bit more of this in his presentation. And then transportation alternatives. So this is one of those programs that we have for our locals to submit products for, and we try to get programmed in the work program in our TIP. It's about a $15 million target. We have 4 new projects that were added to this for fiscal year 2026 for construction. So that includes Indian Trail Improvement District project, Palm Beach Gardens, West Palm Beach, and then Royal Palm Beach. And then there was one deletion from the work program, and that is the project that was over in the Loxahatchee Groves area. That was to be administered by Palm Beach County, but that was a project for pedestrian improvements, also in a roundabout on Okeechobee Boulevard. So that was withdrawn. Already went through this a little bit, but local initiatives program. So with this program, as we mentioned, those federal funding sources that we're using towards a few of our other state road priorities, it made it so we weren't able to program all these new priorities that we have and try to commit those for fiscal year 2028. So the ones on the right are the ones that we right now are not have committed for funding, but we can look and try to work with FDOT to get those continue to be prioritized, but get those programmed in an upcoming work program in a later time. There was one project that was funded from this cycle, and that's a passenger rail car for SFRTA. That's actually funded in an earlier year than we would typically see. It uses another matching amount from another program we have with our region called the State Transportation Regional Incentive Program. So our partners in Broward and Miami-Dade are also contributing funds towards that for new rail car replacements for SFRTA. This is my last slide for you. I know it was a long presentation, and I'll turn it over to FDOT. But in your backup, there is a resolution with language in there. In that resolution, it has our staff recommendations for what to move forward with. It acknowledges a cooperative process with FDOT. It does request coordination on a few items. So the first one is to program our currently unfunded local initiatives priorities when funding becomes available. The second one is to allocate other state and federal sources on our TPA state road priorities when they become available as well. And so what that really means is, for example, State Road 7, when other funding that our state or federal funds get freed up in the work program due to other delays in projects or just additional funding becomes available, to put it towards State Road 7 or Atlantic Avenue or other projects that might have that funding. And that way we can free up some of those federal sources that we typically use towards local initiatives. And we can get those projects back on track to get those funded in this program as well. And then lastly is to find additional revenue sources such as discretionary grants to fund State Road 7 once we have litigation resolved.
Thank you, Andrew. I just wanted, if you could go back one more slide to the TA or the LI program. There you go. So I wanted to, what we're proposing in the resolution, again, this is a draft. It's the first glance of what we're going to see and adopt for our new transportation improvement program. We're going to see a draft of that in March and then the final in June. What we're proposing to the board is to keep these projects next in line, and we're going to work with FDOT to find funding for them as soon as possible. There's a lot of unknowns with State Road 7. It might get resolved sooner. We might be able to go after a federal grant, and then that would free up money for these to get next in line. There's a lot that can happen in the next 5 years. These are 5 years out for 2028. Also, our transportation alternatives program, we're expecting to have more funding for that. And that is a separate grant program. It's so, for example, the Boca Raton project would be a great candidate for that. And that would actually, if they were to, we're not asking these projects to apply again for local initiatives, we're keeping them next on the list. However, if they were to choose to apply for a TA grant, that could actually move them up to 2027, and it could happen sooner. So there's opportunities, and we're going to do everything we can. This is just the first glance that we get at this. And unfortunately, again, because of the State Road 7 situation, and in order to keep it as on the list as a funded project, it is holding up that spot, and we can't yet commit funding for these projects at this point, but we're going to do everything we can to fund them as soon as possible. I know that Steve Brown from FDOT has a presentation about this. Maybe we can leave questions to the end after he's able to speak.
Yeah, let's do discussion after. I can see the cards are starting to pop up for sure. So I'm going to introduce Steve Braun, who's the Director of Transportation Development for FDOT District 4. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Yep, Steve Braun, Director of Transportation Development, District 4 office. Excellent presentation by Andrew. He got into some of the same points that I had in my presentation. So I think the latter part of my presentation, I'll probably just kind of roll through that because he did an excellent job. So Jerry O'Reilly, District Secretary, he was slated to present. He had something come up today. So he does send his regards. He sends his appreciation to the TPA staff and to the board members, really just on the collaboration on projects, but specifically this time of the year, the collaboration on the draft tentative work program. So, you know, some of this Andrew covered in his presentation, and Valerie touched in with a couple of key points too. From a district perspective, the work program as presented, you know, this draft tentative is fiscal year 24 through 28. It's relatively stable. And when I say stable, it's in the sense of we receive allocations in those various programs that were mentioned. We receive the priority list from the MPO or the TPA in this case. And then we try to balance the program based on those priorities and the available resources. So from that perspective, the program that's presented here is balanced, you know, considering all those elements. Again, we receive the allocations, And then we update the right-of-way costs and the construction costs of these projects on an annual basis. And we have seen significant increases in project costs, unit prices, delivering those projects, the cost of those has increased. So it was important really, as mentioned, to prioritize the programming on projects that were already in that production pipeline, projects that, to keep the stability of the work program, program those shortfalls on right-of-way or construction funding. In some cases, it was active projects in construction that needed additional funding, and then others that were planned projects where we had to kind of make those adjustments. For example, those projects in the earlier agenda item, which we appreciate, those TIP amendments on those cost increases. So that was a big challenge to our work program team. I just want to kind of acknowledge them here from the program management office, and then our planning and environmental management office, very involved in over the last few months, really just balancing the program. When we balance the program, there are certain things, safety, preservation, maintenance, right? That really, the term we use there, come off the top, right? Those are things that we try to the best of our ability keep whole in the program, and that's really what led to some of the challenges, across the district on trying to keep the programs stable. In general terms, new projects are indeed, as Andrew mentioned, that one graphic he had was excellent, showing the 5 years of the work program and the new 5th year, right? So generally, that's when new projects get programmed. We have some examples here where we're actually able to advance projects within those first 4 years that Valerie mentioned as well, that were already in the program. So before I get into details on the program, I mentioned right off the top programming, but really off the top across the agency and all the agency partners, really, safety is paramount, right? So as we've done for the last few years here, we've presented some safety statistics, and I think we are seeing some positive trends, right? Statewide total crashes, total fatalities, at least the trend from 2021 to 2022, we're seeing a decrease in those areas. Bicycle and pedestrian crashes and fatalities, also an improvement there, or a decreasing trend. And I think a lot of that goes really statewide, down to the local level. We heard earlier in some of the opening remarks, some of the outreach events regarding bicycle and pedestrian safety or railroad crossing safety. I think the outreach element of that, I think, has made a big difference, along with the engineering and the planning side of trying to plan projects that address bicycle and pedestrian safety concerns, railroad crossings as well, and of course on the roadway network. This next slide really takes a little deeper dive into District 4. As you know, our district covers from Broward all the way up to Indian River County. We're seeing similar trends in the district. It is noted there that at least in Palm Beach County, we're not seeing that same trend, at least for the last year, on the decreasing number of bicycle and pedestrian crashes and fatalities, unfortunately. But it takes time for this board really to see the projects that are envisioned here addressing bicycle and pedestrian safety actually get implemented. But the outreach element is critical. I commend again the TPA staff here, your level of engagement on some of that outreach with local municipalities as well. So I think we're going to keep pushing at that. We keep emphasizing it on our projects. I'll touch on it again later, but the chair, you mentioned on resurfacing projects, right? We have a tremendous number of lane miles planned to be resurfaced on the state highway network. It's going to be important really for local municipalities, law enforcement to give feedback on the scope of those projects, because there may be opportunities to add safety elements to those projects within the context of a resurfacing project. So again, Andrew's presentation was excellent. So, this is really going through the different programs he mentioned. He touched on State Road 7 extension. The first phase or segment of that really from Okeechobee to 60th, right, remained in the 5-year program, deferred out to fiscal year 2028. On both segments, we still have design and utility phases within the 5-year program. So, we're going to continue to work through that. As mentioned, the administrative hearing for the permit challenge is scheduled for October of 2023. It was touched on really just as I go through these projects, keep in mind the points made before, really just on the stability of the program and trying to really keep projects that were in that production pipeline move in really to get delivery of those projects in those first four and even in the new fifth of the work program. The earlier slide really showed the different segments on Atlantic Avenue. So this is good news. On the segment here from Lyons to Jog, the right-of-way phase is funded. That's about a $28 million programming commitment to the right-of-way for Atlantic Avenue on that project. And another good news example here on the diversity of the program, really, it covers everything from planning all the way through maintenance, is the feasibility study on Okeechobee Boulevard and segment of State Road 7, really looking at transit improvements along there. Really seeing that emphasis from the TPA on those multimodal improvements on the state highway network are important. So I think going into that feasibility study in fiscal year 25, will be important. And again, that's a planning phase that was programmed in an earlier year, right? Not in the new fifth year, as was said before. This feasibility study on State Road 80 was actually in the previous slide mentioned as the US 27 connection. It's really kind of a corridor study there. But again, based on the ongoing corridor study, there'll be outreach to local stakeholders on that, this bypass connection out in the western part of the county. And here we were able to at least program the project development environment study in fiscal year 27. Yeah, I mentioned safety and other needs out there. This Forest Hill Boulevard project, we were able to advance the design phase 1 year. This project includes elements such as the green bike lanes at the conflict points, some other transit type improvements, and lighting, pedestrian lighting as well. Similar to the next project, some of those elements included in that project, again, we're able to at least advance the design phase for that 1 year. Andrew covered the local initiatives program. The second project there, also an advancement on this Greenbrier Boulevard project out in Wellington area. Focus there on the bike lane network out there. And then the third one listed there, the rolling stock with SFRTA, the local match there through the local initiatives program for that rolling stock through that TRIP program, Transportation Regional Incentive Program, that really looks at those regional type projects and finds those opportunities to provide that match with the SU funds. The Transportation Alternative Program, one of those kind of buckets that the TPA prioritizes and looks to prioritize. There was a deferral here on a project by 1 year. And then one that was deleted. But I'm going to, on the next slide, really just share some of the examples of projects where construction moved in really into fiscal year 26 for these 4 projects. For example, the Indian Trail Improvement District project, multiple locations with a shared use path, a 10-foot shared use path, widening of sidewalks. The other projects listed there are similar, buffered bike lanes, ADA ramps, and then also a bike ped project there. So again, not necessarily through the local initiative program, but through this TA program, we were able to at least fund the construction of those projects. I mentioned the resurfacing, so I'll really just reiterate that, right? From a preservation perspective, the pavement condition, which really has safety implications as well, it was important for us to address some of those deficiencies on the pavement. 8 new resurfacing projects programmed this cycle. 62 lane miles of resurfacing on the state roads, with design in fiscal year 24 and construction in fiscal year 27. Overall, in Palm Beach County, I believe we're about 315 total lane miles of resurfacing. So that gives you an indication of really some of that off the top to address the preservation of those facilities. 315 lane miles, that's about 200 million in projects in that area. And then also a concrete resurfacing project based on the high truck traffic out on 710. That project was programmed this cycle as well. Just covering the range of projects, right, an interchange improvement at Linton Boulevard. This project had previously been planned, had deferred out, and we were able to program that. And then a couple of other projects here. Again, construction in fiscal year 28 on that extension. That would be, I believe, implemented through the county. And then the jog road improvements, construction in fiscal year 27. That project really came out of some of the collaboration with Palm Beach County, other stakeholders. We have a concept development group that looks at some of those requests and identifies operational or safety concerns at spot locations. And then they present those as opportunities to program those projects. So there are times where those really don't necessarily come directly through the TPA prioritization, but they're important projects to address as well. And then again, in the spirit of preservation, these are bridge rehabilitation projects. We'll be working closely as these projects come closer to construction with stakeholders. But these are really just the bridge condition, kind of like in some cases, like a car needs an oil change or something, or some rehab work. These are not bridge replacement projects. So just through our structures maintenance group, identified these needs at these locations. And then just mentioning, right, just different funding sources that perhaps become available as the program moves forward. We had an opportunity through the American Rescue Plan Act to advance an interchange project at I-95 and Belvedere Road. So that was advanced to fiscal year 23. In the district, we'll often work on what's called advanced production. So we'll prepare the design plans, have them ready to go, really waiting for those shovel-ready opportunities. So we've had some success with that. So you may see a project with the design or right-of-way program without the construction, or the construction's in and out a year. So this is a good example of that, really operational improvements at that interchange. And just a graphic depiction of the program, really just showing the range of projects geographically and the scope of the projects. You see projects really scattered throughout the county, reflected in this draft tentative work program. That first slide was resurfacing projects. Here's the other projects. I believe that's the State Road 80 lighting project that was mentioned earlier out in the western part of the county. And then some of these are some of those local projects as well, shown on the non-state highway system network. Since I got the presentation, you can contact Jerry with any questions or comments. No, honestly, this is a collaborative effort. We appreciate the opportunity to present this. This was really high level. Staff has the detailed plan. Andrew gave an excellent overview, again, of some of the key efforts and projects and initiatives. But we're happy to take any questions here.
All right, but before we go into questions, I just want to mention that we do have another presentation after with Victoria Williams for the Turnpike. So before we go into that, is it okay with our board if we go ahead with questioning with you, do our public comments, and then if there are questions about Turnpike, we can add it on later, but in the interest of time, so we can all vote in a timely manner. Perhaps if you do have a question specific to the Turnpike, Victoria can come up for that while we're asking questions of you, if that's okay with everybody. All right, so before we have questions from the board, I know that public comment is always number one. I think we have 2 public comments, Amanda.
Yes, Madam Chair. The first public comment I will read into the record. This is from Andrea Levine O'Rourke, City of Boca Raton Deputy Mayor. She writes, I'm strongly in support of keeping the 18th Street Shared Use Path project in Boca Raton as scheduled. We've been looking forward to this, particularly with our commitment to Vision Zero. It is more important than ever. Please help support our effort here in Boca Raton for pedestrians and cyclers' safety. The second public comment is from Richard Vazzalotti, and he has indicated that he'd wish to speak at the podium for his public comment.
All right, Mr. Vazzalotti, are you here?
Oh,
I see him in the back. He's just raised his hand and looks like he's coming up.
If you could state your name and perhaps spelling if we need it,
Sure.
and your address, we'd appreciate it.
My name's Richard Vassalotti. V as in Victor, Assalotti. I live at 12839 70th Place North in the acreage. Good morning. As a taxpayer and voting citizen of Palm Beach County, and also as a member of the Citizens Advisory Council and a 30-year retired veteran of Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, I would like to address the board with a few simple questions. And if you agree with me, please raise your hand. If you believe that a well-designed and purposeful network of roads helps to facilitate the movement of traffic more safely and efficiently, helps to reduce fire rescue and law enforcement response times, and helps reduce ambulance transports times, moving the sick and injured to hospitals, and helps to efficiently move traffic in the event of an evacuation. If you believe that a well-designed network of roads helps with all this, please raise your hand.
Mr. I'm afraid we're not going to be taking any votes or anything at the moment. So if you could just do your
Well,
presentation.
okay, so I'll answer for you guys then. I do believe you believe that because you're on the Transportation Agency's governing board. So I do believe that you believe in a well-designed network of roads. If you believe in Vision Zero, this very difficult goal to obtain, that Vision Zero would be more attainable with a well-designed and purposeful network of roads. If you believe that, yes, you are on this board, and I know you believe in Vision Zero. And if you believe that elected officials should be honest, transparent, fiscally responsible with taxpayers' funds, and represent the people as a whole, and not just a select few with a special interest. And as elected officials, you should all believe that, because we believe in you. Unfortunately, we have members on this board, elected officials, who do not agree with anything I have just spoke about. And how do we know this? Because of their constant opposition to State Road 7. Back in the 80s and 90s, when the city of West Palm Beach annexed the wetlands of Grassy Waters Preserve, and then decided to build on these wetlands, neighborhoods, thousands of homes, roads, facility complexes, commercial properties, gas stations, grocery stores, shops, schools, apartment complexes, a land, actually a garbage dump on the wetlands with a hazardous materials recycling center, all of this for tax revenue. Nobody complained. Nobody said this would contaminate their water. North Lake Boulevard runs right to the front door of IBIS, straight through Grassy Waters Preserve with no drainage protection and no protection of vehicles entering Grassy Waters. I know this. I travel North Lake almost every day, and I've responded to many vehicle crashes on North Lake Boulevard straight into Grassy Waters Preserve. As far as I know, nobody died of any contamination of a vehicle in Grassy Waters Preserve. Every time it rains, though, that water on the side of North Lake Boulevard overruns and goes straight into Grassy Waters Preserve. There is no drainage protection. Nobody's complaining, and that's okay.
Sir, I'm so sorry.
Please let me finish.
I understand.
I am a
Everyone's-
member of the
public-
CAC and 30-year veteran of Palm Beach County. I have vital
We will listen.
information
I just
here.
wanted to let you know that your 3 minutes has ended. I'm going to grant you 30 more seconds if you could please complete your comments. Thank you.
City of West Palm Beach needs to be held accountable for the $15 million they have wasted fighting this road. It is affecting people from South Bay, Wellington, Loxahatchee, and we are trapped. I have personally believed people have died, in my opinion, from my years of fire rescue and 27 years living in the acreage. People have died on these roads because of the non-existent traffic relief that we see on a daily basis. This is shameful. City of West Palm Beach needs to be held accountable. DOT needs to get on board. This committee and the Palm Beach County Commission, and this road needs to happen. And if you are against this road, you are against everything that I said, because you cannot do what you have done to your wetlands and take your drinking water from the contaminated Lake Okeechobee. And all of that's okay. But say a few miles of road behind the prestigious neighborhood of Ibis is going to contaminate your water. That is a lie. That is hypocrisy. And this needs to end, please. And one more thing. If this isn't going to work out, we need to find alternate route out of the acreage
I
and area.
appreciate your
Seminole
time. We
Pratt
have to
to the
allow,
Beeline Highway needs to be readdressed.
thank you.
Something needs to be done.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. We really do.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Clinton Forbes to the podium, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Clinton Forbes, Executive Director of Palm Tran, Madam Chair, members of the Transportation Planning Agency. I just wanted to, one, start with thanking the TPA and its leadership and working collaboratively with Palm Tran to support many of the transit projects in the program over in the past, and including, our aggressive bus shelter program, electrification of the fleet, and others. However, I do have to put comments on the record with respect to, this board's commitment to support and fund and continue to promote transit in your program. As you can see, this program is very road heavy. And I just want to put comments on the record that, I've heard this board make comments to the effect to move, more to supporting and expanding transit in this community. And when you look at your local initiatives program, where I am very pleased that we are supporting a transit project with replacing one tri-rail car. But the other projects have been affected. Our desire to continue to move to electrifying our fleet, move to electric propulsion on our buses, which is currently in the current program, that has now, that's been affected by, of course, the purchase of one South Florida rail car. And I think this is probably the first time we've only funded like one project in that local initiative program. I do appreciate and recognize the intent of the leadership to fund, to ask FDOT to fund the other projects, or find funding for the other projects. But I'm here to just, express for the record that, we will continue to support the advancement of transit projects for Palm Tran in the program to include, the electrification of our fleet.
Noted. Thank you so much for coming to the podium.
Thank you.
All right, so let's bring it to our board member questions. I think the first card up was Mayor Koretsky.
Oh, thank you. Actually, it's not a question.
It was Mayor Koretsky who had his card first.
I misheard.
Two items. I don't know if FDOT can pull up the slide on the pedestrian and bicycle fatalities or not. And if there was a graph that was showing what really strikes me here is to the degree that Vision Zero is important to everybody, I'm sure in every county and FDOT. What is Broward County doing that we're not? I mean, so I don't expect you to have the answer here, but that's incredible. So we're going in the wrong direction and they're going in the right direction. And we just want to make sure if there's something to learn from that we do, because I'm just looking at the bottom graph, right? And wow, I mean, I grew up in Broward County. I thought we'd never be where they were and there we are. So could you take that and somebody get back with us?
So they do have a dedicated funding source as well.
What's
which
that?
They have a dedicated funding source as well.
No, but it still is still is a 1 year. So I'm just wondering if there's some educational, funding doesn't get an immediate, I mean, we're just talking about stuff 5 years out, 6 years out. So I'm just wondering what happened in that 1 year. We started this off with West Palm sharing what they're doing. Of course, it's the end of the year, but that's a great thing. So are those kind of things they're doing that may be paying dividends? I think it's incumbent upon ourselves to just ask that question. It's just so startling.
Is it rhetorical or would you like him to try to answer?
If he
that?
can answer.
I'll try answer, I think in general terms, I don't have the specific silver bullet, right? And Valerie maybe can look into this with us and Broward MPO. I believe Broward MPO, their Complete Streets Local Initiative Program may have started a couple of years ahead of the Palm Beach TPA. So that program established, I think Palm Beach TPA for sure is on the right track with at least identifying that type of program and that type of project. But I think Broward may have been a couple of years ahead as far as identifying those type of projects from my recollection. I think it's, we touched on it, right? The life cycle of a project from a program being established to a planning study, to identifying a need, design, construct. So I think the optimist in me says, well, the Palm Beach TPA has been placing an emphasis on that. So some of those projects may indeed be under construction now or coming up. I think the point that I wanted to reiterate from the chair, right? The relationship, right? And I'm not saying this didn't happen in Palm Beach, but I think there's an opportunity with those resurfacing projects really to give the feedback and try and implement those. And I think just overall, just the emphasis to the municipalities, to the public, the education side of it's important. So the data may not be reflected in this snapshot in time, but I think we're getting there in this county with that commitment. But it's sobering to look at the graphic to say, well, what more can we do? And what more should we be doing? And how do we just build upon that strong foundation? I've seen excellent outreach here from a lot of the municipalities at this board, and obviously the TPA and the department. We, I think last year and the previous year introduced our district safety administrator, which is really for us, and it's working with all 5 MPO, TPA, TPO bodies and local municipalities and internal staff on looking at processes across the board. So I think there is a focus. It wasn't a succinct answer to your question, but I think there are things that perhaps Broward did a little bit ahead of where y'all were. I don't know, Valerie, if that's a true statement. or not.
Thank you. I agree. I think it's a variety. Obviously, it's the 5 E's of engineering, education, enforcement, encouragement, evaluation, but Broward MPO is the Broward County is the most populous county in the district. It's also the one with the most crashes. So for District 4, some of their Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow efforts in terms of education, they do a lot of outreach in that county. They do in our county as well, but there's a lot more focus. But in terms of it takes time to see an effect happen once a project is constructed, and each of these projects are piecemeal to create a connected system. Broward County did start earlier with complete streets efforts than our county. They started I would say over a decade ago with those efforts, and we're a little behind on that, but we've been working on it over the last couple of years. But all of this takes time to take effect. So I think it's probably a combination of education outreach efforts, engineering projects coming into the pipeline, but also all of our municipalities, in addition to the TPA, we can all do our part in raising education and awareness, both from all ages. So in the schools, in our communities, and working with FDOT and all our partners to do that.
Yeah, if I may share one more point on that, because I mean, it is a critical issue, bike and ped safety. Yeah, I'll give this board, I think, credit on 2 things that come to mind over and above everything else I mentioned before, having been involved in those projects, right? So we've had project teams up here talking about some of our interchange projects. And the TPA really challenged the department in a good way, saying, what more could we do on these interchange projects as we bring bicycles and pedestrians through those interchanges? And we were able to at least go back, look at that and come up with recommendations.
And very exciting that this year, both on the first ever county road and first ever FDOT road is breaking ground thanks to collaboration between the TPA and the 2 agencies on the first ever separated bike lanes. So a resurfacing project on Lake Worth Road through the village of Palm Springs and Green Acres. That project was just going to be a resurfacing. It's a high crash area. We're adding a mid-block crossing and separate bike lanes, and that's going into construction. So those efforts are underway, but it takes time.
And that was the other one I was going to mention. Lake Worth, that's a trend-setting project here in the district. That would be our first fully separated bike lane that's been done as part of that project. And that started simply as a resurfacing project. And we had the conversations early enough in the process where TPA staff met with us and said, let's look before we even get into the design. How do we address some of those concerns out there? And that's going to construction now. which
Thank you. All
hopefully a
right.
couple of years from now is reflected on a graph like that. So.
Thank you. All right. So my goal is to get this, I know this is extraordinarily important. Everyone take your time. We will start to lose our quorum around 11:15, and I want to make sure we have the opportunity to vote on this. So please make sure your questions, if it's anything repetitive in any way, shape or form, just, you can even just say ditto. If not, the next card that went up was Mayor Wilson.
Well, this is not a repetitive question or comment. It may seem like an old record for some of you, my board members, and it may be a new song for the rest of you. But the State Road 80 lighting, am I to assume through FDOT, Andrew, or anybody, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, that construction is going to be 26, or is that the completion time? Now, I heard you guys talk about advancing projects. This board 2 years ago gave direction to advance this project. I'm disappointed, and you should be, if this is not one of those projects that were not considered to be advanced, when you clearly went on record requesting that. And at the time, you guys indicated that because of lack of funding. I also heard, if my memory serves me right, that the American Rescue Act dollars was opportunity to advance some of these projects. So I'm saying to the CEO, why is this not one of those projects being advanced, Madam Chair, if I can get that question?
I do believe it was advanced, and I'm going to ask Valerie to clarify on that.
Yeah, this project's actually been allocated additional funds and advanced to the extent feasible with other projects already in the pipeline. Maybe Steve Braun or Andrew, you can speak a little bit to more of those details on this project and the timing of State Road 80 lighting. Mayor Wilson's asking why isn't it not advanced further than where it is now? But I believe it was advanced to where it is now.
And Mayor Wilson, there's two phases of this project. That first phase is actually in the current fiscal year. I think design plans are already out for that. So FDOT's looking it up and see when that part, if that's gonna be a separate construction done earlier, but it is broken out in two phases. So when you see that fiscal year 26, that's that second phase of it. It was a large project and it was hard to fit it all in the same year.
And that's what I can't find it. That's what I'm saying. If you can navigate that for me to the first phase, and when would that start?
Okay, yep, we'll look real quickly for you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you. Mayor Koretsky, your question was already answered, correct?
No, I had,
Actually, before you do a second one, I'll round
Right.
everybody up. Okay, so the next one that was up was Commissioner Sacks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I don't want to be duplicitous, but I'll tell you one thing. I am very upset and frustrated at the statistics on pedestrian and bicycle crashes and fatalities our county has in comparison to other counties that are contiguous to us. I'd like to see a report, and this is state roads, not county. But since it's District 4, I think that's a question. Are these statistics that we saw, and you don't need to put the screen up again, but are these statistics derived from county roads or state roads, sir?
So just quickly, the statistics shown on that graph were state and local roads.
Okay, state and county and local. So I'd like to see if I could a report in 6 months to see how we're doing with our dedicated bicycle paths and fatalities, pedestrian fatalities, because this is our mission. This is what we do here. Safety more than anything else. And these statistics are alarming. So if I could ask respectfully if we could have a report in about 6 months to see how we're doing with our education and our engineering, because it's alarming. And then I would like to speak with you a little off the record, out of the committee today, to save time with regard to what's happening with Atlantic Avenue. And I don't understand how we can put money into widening Atlantic Avenue from 441 to Lyons and then wait a couple of years before we continue the widening to the Turnpike. But that'll be something that I'll talk to Mr. O'Reilly probably about. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sacks. Actually, I believe it was Commissioner Marino who had her card up after Commissioner Sacks, and then it will be Councilmember Drucker.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of the mic drop thing. Mr. Vassalotti, you're still in the room. I totally agree with you about State Road 7. And also, I would like to say that I was at an event on earlier this week at IBIS. And the things I am hearing from residents in IBIS is, why isn't State Road 7 being done? So I think it might behoove us here to, we've done it before, but poll residents in IBIS again, because I remember the last poll, it showed basically a 50-50 of people that wanted it and didn't want it. And this shouldn't be something political. When you think of the impacts of drainage and water and pollution, look at other parts of grassy waters where there are homes with septic tanks right along the waterway. So again, this should not be a political thing. This is a safety thing. And with some concentration of widening on North Lake in various areas, we really do need to do this to alleviate traffic. And I just want to make sure that the funding stays in place. I know that we moved it to 2028, but I don't see that funding getting lost. I see that funding making sure that it stays in place. So if the lawsuit goes through and it gets settled in a year, does it move forward? So that was sort of a combination of a lot of things. And if you can distill an answer out of that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, the best answer I can distill is your last point, right? I think as we proceed through the administrative hearing process, or parallel to that, depending on where things are heading, we would work closely with the TPA, and Valerie touched on earlier, on really just trying to either advance that project or keep it fully in the program. We know it's an
And
important
again-
project for this TPA.
And again, if we can poll the residents of IBIS, I think that might help us also.
Noted. All right, thank you, Commissioner Marina. We're going to speak with Councilmember Drucker, and then it'll be Mayor Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my feedback is really, I've had a lot of conversations with Valerie Nielsen about the projects that were left off and there was no funding for, and particularly the 18th Street, which obviously is in Boca Raton. And at first, very disappointed. We've had feedback from staff and from residents and obviously from our council. But I've worked with Valerie in the last 48 hours, and I appreciate that you came to us and you're trying to find alternate fundings and you're trying to get there. This is just a draft and things can change. So, and there are other projects. So there's 6 state projects that are on the list that affect Boca Raton, and also 3 local projects that cross over with the county. So because of that, I'm most likely going to support the resolution because there are other things on the pipeline. But it was disappointing that because of the litigation, that we're still not getting funding projects for local initiatives, which is a real big goal of this board. So I just wanted to go on the record with that. And in terms of the safety, it is really alarming. I do feel we have a lot more residents coming into Palm Beach County, which I don't know the numbers. Maybe the report will show that. Maybe that's something that we could look at. So people don't understand our roads, or maybe they come from other cities where there was more safety features around bike lanes, pedestrian mobility. I know that in our city, we're really looking at that very carefully. We passed Vision Zero last October, this October, so last month, or in December, in October. So that's a goal, but there's only 11 cities in the county, I think, that have adopted Vision Zero. So that's something for other cities to start looking at, because when you do that, you could get a work plan and you could start putting safety measures in your city, and there's funding for certain projects. So something for other cities to think about. So those are my 2 comments.
Well
Thank
said.
you.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Pinto.
No, thank you. Just want to put some information on the record representing some information I received from one of the ITID supervisors, and I saw the project posted for the speed straps throughout the ITID acreage area. Just kind of speaking for them today, that the reason why they're doing this is it's clearly a critical safety issue. The amount of crashes and accidents that are occurring on their roads is continually to increase. And this is an action that they're taking to try to do something about addressing that problem. So I would like that put on the record. It is an important safety issue for that environment. And if anything can be done to get that project expedited, it would be greatly appreciated for the community and the citizens in the acreage. Thank you.
Noted. And I believe our the resolution will be drafted in recognition of everybody who's been pushed off. I'm going to skip ahead for a moment and go to our council because you get to speak.
Just as a follow-up to Commissioner Marino's comments about State Road 7, and we're talking about the lawsuit involving FDOT, it's important to recognize that there's actually two lawsuits out there. The city of West Palm Beach is currently in litigation with the TPA. And that suit is on hold because what happens in the FDOT case is going to substantially influence what happens with the TPA case. So you're really looking at two pieces of litigation that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. I think so. I believe it was Commissioner Fox and then Commissioner Mayotte and then I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Brinkman, and then we'll finish off with Mayor Koretsky. Yeah, and nope, we'll go back to Napoleon. So we'll go to Christy. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I first wanted to just start with saying that West Palm Beach was the first municipality, I believe, in Palm Beach County to implement complete streets. And since 2018, we've also had a Vision Zero program. And since we have had that program, we've had approximately 25% reduced crashes, including pedestrians and bicyclists. So obviously there's always more to be done, but through enforcement and education, we've really been able to work on the safety of our city. So just wanted to comment on that. But I also just wanted to go back to the State Road 7. What I believe I heard from Andrew's presentation and from Valerie's comments was that construction and inflation were to blame for the rising costs of many projects, but it was a miscalculation of the project scope for State Road 7 and other environmental issues that have led to these ballooning costs from 59 million to 87.5 million. So that's almost $30 million more than we had originally allocated. And that is, it sounds like, taking away from the 18th Street project and many other projects that are important to other municipalities. So I just want to continue to say that to the other board members here, that some of your projects that are important to you might be being passed over for the $90 million that is now calculated to be going towards the State Road 7 project. So I know that we all have important things to our own cities, and this is important to us to continue to work against this road. So thank you for the giving us this, overview today, but I obviously cannot be supporting this. And I would ask my other board members who have things that are being cut due to the State Road 7 that you consider not voting for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So, and if you've spoken, please put your card down for me. We have a lot of cards up. I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just feel I need to say a little bit in addition to what Councilmember Drucker mentioned with our 18th Street project. First of all, we've had two public comments, one from our deputy mayor regarding 18th Street, and the very first public comment that was mentioned was our newest council member, Fran Nackles. So she was also in support of the 18th Street project. From what I see, I try to step back and take a little bit of a bigger picture. There are 6 important projects here, relatively highly ranked projects in the local initiatives that are not being funded in this draft, that are being jeopardized for a project with 2 separate litigations pending with an unknown future. And so that to me seems, not fair for these 6 projects. Our project is directly related to bike safety, pedestrian safety, and rail safety because it's a pedestrian crossing at a railroad that doesn't exist today. So I think with our county commitment to all of these safety features, these need to stay in the project list. And also I had just basically maybe had a question is why, the passenger rail car for Tri-Rail was ranked number 2 and that one was funded and ours was ranked number 1 and it wasn't funded. I didn't understand why didn't the first ranked project get on the list and maybe some of the other ones, because I know the passenger rail was a $3.5 million project and ours is a $1.4 million project. So I was just wondering the reasons why the second ranked project got funded and the first one didn't. And I don't know if this is possible, but I would love to have something on the record as I know I've been told in conversations with Ms. Nielsen that we will stay on the list with our funding, we won't get thrown back into the mix when new projects come in. And I appreciate that, but I kind of would like to know that that's a commitment, whether there's a resolution that we can pass to say that will happen. I just wanted on the record that that was stated, and I want to make sure that happens.
If y'all would indulge me to try to answer that, we can have Steve back me up. But the reason why the passenger rail was accepted was it was a different bucket from funding. It was a matching fund. It wasn't the same pocket of money. It was a different pocket of money that was taken out of. Is that correct?
I'll jump in. Thank you for your comments. So the Tri-Rail passenger rail car, those SU local funds were a match to a statewide trip grant. So they were married to another grant, and that's why it's moving forward in 26 advanced. But yes, the resolution we're proposing is to keep these projects next in line and do everything possible to actually fund them in that year, find funding in the work program. As we've stated, State Road 7, there's a lot of unknowns. We're trying to keep it funded. The only way to do that without compromising everyone else already committed is to keep it in that outer year, but things may shift around. And also the TA program has more funding. And as I mentioned, the Southwest 18th Street project would be a great candidate for that. And it could potentially receive funding sooner in 27 if it's applied for that program in this cycle. So we are doing everything, and our proposed resolution is to say, do everything possible, keep these projects next in the list, and find funding for them as soon as possible. I also just want to make a quick comment in regarding the pedestrian bicycle safety and the crashes. Those crashes that we saw, the counties to the north of us have a lot less residents too. So in proportion, Broward has more than Palm Beach, but Broward is doing a great job in seeing that decrease. But to the north of us, they do have less population as well. But we are planning to bring in February a report on this past year's ped bike crashes, where we're at, those performance measures, and a deeper dive. So we'll be talking more about that then. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I've also asked Amanda to pull the resolution up on the screen so you guys can see it. It was in your full agenda packet. Any other questions?
Yes, I just have one follow-up. What's the process to get our project funded with the TA funds?
So if it stays next on the list because we have everything committed, and these projects are next on the list, they're not yet committed, it would stay there and not have to reapply. For a TA, it would have to submit the application, which all the documents are already ready, but it's a different application form to FDOT. And then it has a very good chance of being funded because it's scored so highly, but it would be in the cycle. The funding for that program, it's a completely separate pot, is 3 years out. So it would be in fiscal year 27 with design next year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Mayotte. We're going to go to Councilman Napoleon.
Thank you. And I'll be brief because I'm mindful of the time. I want to start by saying I agree with almost everything Mr. Gazzalotti said about the importance and need for the extension of State Road 7. I've made those comments at previous meetings. I still stand by them today. I'm extremely disappointed that we're kicking this can down the road, but I have two questions. One, did I understand that the project number was 04-1, which means it was a priority program from 2004?
2004.
And it's almost 2023. and we
Yes,
still
it
haven't
is.
Gotten to this road yet? Okay, but we keep building houses and letting people live out there, but we can't move them around the county safely. Okay. And if we vote on this today, yes, on this amendment, and we move this road project further down the list, we do have the ability to try to advance it again if and when the litigation to stop the road is defeated, correct?
Immediately.
Okay.
So just to clarify that, to the second question, today, the vote is just an endorsement for the draft tentative work program. The final vote is actually in June of 2022. So whether or not we vote yes or no, it's still going to go to central office, and they're going forward with it's obviously the DOT would like an endorsement from the board because it's also endorsing the next 4 years of all the committed projects for all of us, for all the municipalities. But for that new outer year, if and when the State Road 7 litigation is resolved, the goal would be to find any funds available, whether it's a federal grant, other funding, to advance it as soon as possible. We wouldn't avalanche or compromise people that are already under contract, but we can't go after any other funding if it's still in litigation. So as soon as it's resolved, it's full steam ahead.
Thank you. And that's what I wanted to declare. So
Yeah, and to clarify further, the anything that was accepted into the Transportation Alternatives Program that was already accepted, that's not in that outer year. is still going through. So for example, for Palm Beach Gardens, which I kind of know off the top of my head, in 2020, we applied for a double cycle track on Burns Road. That's going to take place in 24. We've had other ones. So those are all still going. It's that 27 to 28 outer year that we're talking about right now. We're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's just the future funding is really the primary discussion. So to finish it off, we're going to go to actually Commissioner Lambert, and then since Mayor Koretsky, you already spoke, we'll have you finish us off.
Thank you. Since most of the comments have been already made, I just wanted to say that it's, disappointing that we are delaying funding of local initiatives. And I appreciate the clarification in the resolution that this body will be making sure that we pay close attention to that and that we have future funding for it, because that was along the lines of my question, is just making sure that these local initiatives go through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mayor Koretsky, will you finish us off, please?
Just quickly, and I'm not expecting a reply other than I'd ask FDOT to get back with me. I want to just talk about project 21-6, which is priority project 21-6, which is Indian Town Road at Central Boulevard intersection. That was a priority project. It keeps being bumped out that additional funds are needed. The scope is a study. So what's ironic about that is that means it's at least a decade before it could ever be constructed, because we're not even doing the study. If we could finish the studies, I just think studies to some degree tell us what can and can't be done. So I hope going forward sometime FDOT considers that factor. And if FDOT doesn't understand the safety and traffic congestion at the intersection, I'd like to get with them about it so it's recognized. But I just emphasize for all of us to learn, this is a great collaborative process. I'm not complaining, but I'm just pointing out, here's a study. And it's now not even making 28. So if it makes 29, we don't know, because it even says a note, recommended alternative to be endorsed by TPA. So that means TPA can't even endorse it, and then it's going to be 5 years after that. So please, I'd like to get with FDOT and talk about that project.
Noted. Thank you very much. So Amanda, if you could pull the resolution back up after listening to this conversation, as well as listening to the technical advisory, I do want to see if the board would consider changing the language just a little bit to make it a little bit more strong. In section 2B, we have the word requests FDOT coordinate with the TPA to program currently unfunded local initiatives priorities. Let's get a stronger word in there. Could we use a word along the line, and the board can chime in, require, impose, or exact that FDOT coordinate with the TPA? I know that they will, but I think that request is just not quite expressing the concern that I'm hearing today. So how do I do that, Paul, if I would like to change a word on the proclamation, excuse me, on the resolution?
I think you're doing it as you speak.
Okay, great. All right, so I see nods. I'm going to go ahead with that. Are you guys? Okay, all right. Are there any other comments? I think changing that also brings in, if you guys go back and listen to the citizens advisory, and thank you again, Mr. Vasiliotti, for speaking. Your comments were definitely heard and appreciated. Let's reflect that in the language and call it to vote. Oh, do we have okay, I'm sorry. Mayor Weiss.
Thank you. I don't think it's appropriate to tell them that they're required to do
Okay.
something. I think you can strongly encourage, strongly request them to do something, but to require them seems to be, they're an independent agency.
Okay.
And if they don't comply,
Mhm.
what's going to be the fallout of that?
Well, you're good. Okay, what word would you recommend then? You say strongly request? Sounds emotional. Encourages, we'll take it. Thank you. That was from FDOT. That's fine. But there's a little wink and a smiley face after that, right? Okay. Let's take this to vote. We are going to require a roll call vote, but I will need a motion in a second.
I'll make the motion.
All right. Motion by Marino and second by Flores. We'll do the roll call vote, please.
Yes. Steve Wilson,
Yes.
Yvette Drucker,
Yes.
Monica Mayotte,
Yes.
Angela Cruz is absent. Shelley Petrolia, Julie Casile as the
Yes.
alternate. Joel Flores,
Yes.
Jim Koretsky,
Yes.
Ronaldo Diaz,
I expect this to pass, but we have to vote no in solidarity with West Palm because of the impact to the environment of grassy waters and our water quality concerns.
Joni Brinkman.
Yes.
The Port of Palm Beach is vacant and will be marked as absent. Greg Weiss,
Due to the impact of the local initiatives and the proposed alignment of State Road 7, no.
Maria Sachs,
Because of the delay in extending Atlantic Avenue from Lyons Road to the Turnpike, I reluctantly vote no.
Maria Marino,
Yes.
Marcy Woodward,
Yes.
Mac Bernard,
No.
Brad Pinto.
Yes.
Shirley Lanier is, thank you. Shirley Lanier is absent. Michael Napoleon,
Yes.
Christy Fox,
No.
Christina Lambert,
No, due to the inclusion of State Road 7 and funding uncertain for the local initiative projects.
Chelsea Reed,
I vote yes, and motion the resolution, excuse me, the motion passes 12-6 is what I got. All right, great. Thank you. Moving on, we're going to move on to informational items. Our voting period has ended. If you need to leave, you can, although I highly recommend you stick around because this will be great. We've got Brightline and South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, SFRTA, rail safety update. They're providing an update on our local rail and safety efforts. I'd love to invite Ali Sewell from our Brightline VP of Community Relations, as well as Victor Garcia from SFRTA afterwards. Oh. Hi, Ali.
Good morning. Looks like a few people are leaving, but
They're lost. We'll make sure they watch it later.
I was gonna say, hopefully the information will we'll get back to them. Again, thank you, Chair. My name is Ali Soul, VP of Community Relations with Brightline. I'm joined by my teammate, Joe Mead. Joe, wave. Thank you. Joe is our Director of Safety. So I wanted to make sure that I had Joe with me in case anybody had a question. I'm going to start with some great news, which is we announced today that our two new stations in Boca and Aventura are going to be officially open on the 21st. So in less than a week, we are very, very excited. Yes, we said we would have them online before the end of the year, and we're making that goal. So again, Boca will open and Aventura will open on the 21st. We are doing a ribbon cutting on the 20th. So if you would like to attend that as well, which I know some of you are, we look forward to seeing you there. But I was asked to provide a quick update on our safety efforts. I know there was a lengthy conversation at the October meeting. I watched that meeting, wanted to address and cover some of the topics that were raised. The first thing is Brightline at safety. It is our top priority. Unfortunately, trespassing and motor vehicle incidents on active railroad corridors is not a South Florida problem. It is a nationwide problem. And we continue to look across the nation at innovative ways that other agencies are trying to also solve their own issues and seeing what they're doing and if it works for us. And I'll cover a couple of those. We also work very closely. Obviously, I know Rory's here with the Federal Railroad Administration. They govern our operations and the Florida East Coast Railway operations. So we report into them and work with them on a number of safety initiatives. And we have invested more than $100 million in safety upgrades on our corridor, which is a significant investment. We are doing a lot, but we cannot do it alone. And we need everybody in this room and all of the cities and counties in which we operate and pass through to also be our partners. So talk about that. We look at safety in three buckets: engineering, enforcement, and education. I'm going to go through some of our recent engineering initiatives, some of the things that have been successful from an enforcement perspective, and then also what we've done in the realm of education.
So for engineering, we were actually successful back in 2017. We received a CRISI grant. The total investment is about 5.4 million, $2.3 million award by the federal government, and the Palm Beach TPA actually allocated $564,000 for this project as well. It is upgrading 48 crossings in the Tri-County area between downtown Miami and 15th Street and West Palm Beach. 14 crossings in Palm Beach County, and the scope includes centerline delineators, channelization devices such as medians, exit gates, active message signs, and lane edge markings. We expect that project to be completed in January. Construction started earlier this year, and while it is been a very recent integration of the project, I will say we are already starting to see very promising results for some of these infrastructure measures. So for example, we talk about the center line delineators and the lane edge markings and lane edge delineators. We were seeing individuals who were confused with the corridor, turning either left or right onto the railroad, thinking that it was a perimeter road. And by putting these delineators along the path, it actively tells people that they are not supposed to be turning in that direction. And we have seen a reduction in that type of incident. The next one is our 2021 channelization pilot project. This is a $1 million investment funded by Brightline, where we looked at 10 miles in southern Palm Beach County, where we were seeing some trespassing activity, and in combination with fencing and native landscaping, we installed in certain areas these improvements. And we are also seeing a reduction of the amount of incidents in that area, along with some other things that have been done in terms of enforcement. I mentioned the last time I was in front of this board, which I think was during the summer, that we had been successful in partnering with the Florida Department of Transportation on a 2022 RAISE grant. That is a total investment of 45 million, 25 million by the feds. Brightline and FDOT are each putting in 10 million. This will cover 7 counties from Miami-Dade all the way up to Brevard. And this also has several improvements that are focused on reducing motor vehicle and trespassing incidents. We expect to start construction of these improvements in next year. FDOT is still working to finalize the agreements with the Federal Railroad Administration. Brightline also recently submitted a 2022 CRISI grant application. This is to provide technology enhancements. This technology would be located within our train locomotives, and it would look and see where there are incidents or near misses and compile that so that we could continue working with local law enforcement and then also our partners along the corridor on potential engineering improvements that will be made. So this was recently submitted. We don't know if we're successful, but we hope so. Some pictures of some of the improvements that we've done on the left side, on the left and middle. Those are both part of the CRISI 2017 project that I mentioned. Pictures taken from Lake Worth Beach. You see in the middle those electronic signs. We installed 9 of those in Broward and Palm Beach County. If a train is coming, it says train coming in English and Spanish. When there is no train, we have suicide and crisis prevention messaging. We obviously partner with 211, so we direct people to the 211 resources in Broward and Palm Beach County. The other picture is of our some of our corridor intrusion mitigation. So enforcement, while engineering is significant, enforcement is also a very big component of what we've seen that has helped work and helped to reduce the amount of incidents. So the Federal Railroad Administration, again, recognizing that trespassing is a national problem, has a number of trespassing grants that they issue, and several agencies, law enforcement agencies in South Florida have been successful, including Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, Broward Sheriff's Office, and the City of Hollywood. The City of Hollywood actually received one of these grants, and as such, they were able to provide additional staff to be on the corridor, and they actually saved an individual from committing suicide. So we know that these grants and additional efforts out on the corridor work. This year, we partnered with Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach sheriffs to launch the first ever tri-county enforcement effort with our partners at SFRTA. During that week-long effort, they issued more than 2,100 citations. Palm Beach Sheriff's Office is also very active in helping us, implement the law along the corridor. We had a series of incidents in Lake Worth Beach, and then after that, the office in Lake Worth Beach stepped up and did a number of enforcement efforts. Broward Sheriff's Office, most notably during the summer, did a 2-week enforcement effort called Operation Crossing Guard, where they partnered with all of the police departments in Broward County. They issued more than 2,000 citations, 500 of which were railroad related. And for 10 weeks after this, we did not have an incident in Broward County. So when I say engineering and enforcement work, none of these are successful separately. They all have to be done together for us to see the results that we've been seeing. And a big shout out also goes to Joe and our safety and security team. They work every single day with our law enforcement partners along the corridor, doing trainings, outreach in the field with them, handing out educational materials. As you see, we constantly go out in the field to high traffic crossings and hand out information. And then they also help us in sharing, our educational materials through their social media efforts. This is another big initiative that we undertook about a year ago, red light camera projects. So we were speaking to our partners at Sunrail, which is the commuter rail system in Central Florida, and they did a pilot project that they had seen some successful results from. So we engaged this red light camera company. And now we have 6 cameras deployed throughout South Florida. These are mobile cameras. So if we see an area that is having an uptake of infractions or an incidents, we can move the camera there. But they were predominantly, we started with 2 in Miami-Dade, and then we moved to 2 in Broward. And now we have 2 in Palm Beach. Again, 7,100 warnings have been issued in a year. That's a pretty staggering number. The majority of these are actually in Miami-Dade and Broward County because the cameras in Palm Beach were only up for about 30 to 60 days. But there's one crossing in Miami-Dade County in particular where we saw a very, very high amount of incidents. And so what did we do? We partnered with the local law enforcement agency for that jurisdiction, had them go out to the crossing, and they were able to determine, where a lot of these people were coming from. There was an apartment building right behind the corridor. So they went and targeted that building and handed out educational materials in partnership with us to get the word out and across. So again, all these things work in tandem together. Education is incredibly important. I've said that word probably 10 times by now. Brightline's also been very successful in working with Operation Lifesaver. It is a national nonprofit dedicated to eliminating grade crossing incidents and raising awareness about rail safety. Last year, we received a grant for our Buzz Box, which you can see, it was the mobile barber shop that we took into high-risk communities. If you look good, you feel good. We were focused on the mental health aspect. This year, we received a grant to do targeted digital advertising for our counties to the north of us, including North Palm Beach County, before we launch our phase 2 operations. So the BuzzBox was a great initiative for us, and it really helped us with that mental health component. But as we go north and have more regions and areas that we need to educate, we wanted to do something that we could cast a wider net and reach more people. We also partnership with 211. Brightline actually took the lead prior to COVID to working with Waze. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Waze. If you use Waze or Google Maps, they did not inform you that you were approaching a railroad. But we worked very closely with Waze, and they integrated into their app a railroad warning. So if you are looking, you know that you're coming upon a railroad, and there's a little warning that comes across. We are trying to get with Google and Apple Maps to do the same. but Waze is the first one to do that. And we really help to spearhead that effort. We did just launch a new safety website. And next year we will launch a new PSA campaign. All of our rail safety materials are in English, Spanish, Creole, and Portuguese. We have partnerships with the school districts. And my last but not least bullet on here is just for partner initiatives. You know, a big thanks to Mayor James and to the city of West Palm Beach, to Commissioner Fox, they just recently launched a C-Tracks Think Train effort that's focused on the holiday season, the 12 days of train safety. Those are the things that we need our partners to help us do. You know, awareness, education, enforcement, all of these things help us in our efforts to make this corridor safer. So how can you help? I just went over that. Prioritize safety and change the way people think about behavior near railroad tracks. Support our grant applications. This money exists. The FRA has made, I don't know, Rory, how many trips? 4 or 5 trips to South Florida to talk about safety and all of the grant applications and programs that will be coming out over the next couple of years. If we do not apply for the money, other communities are. And so we definitely believe that since this money exists and its focus is on safety, we should be taking advantage of it. I know that some people have some innovative ideas, things they've seen in other countries for the ways other countries have safety around active railroad tracks. Again, we're governed by the FRA. So what you see on the corridor is a direct reflection on what is federally approved. If you have ideas or things that you would like them to consider, FRA has a whole office of research that actually reviews all of that stuff. Share safety materials and work with local law enforcement on outreach and education. You can also help by making improvements to your public roadways. Again, the city of West Palm Beach is doing this as part of their initiative. Dynamic envelopes, delineators, medians, all of that is stuff. Again, these are public roadways that cross a private railroad track, the Florida East Coast Railway. And then the last bullet, which is always not the one that people want to talk the most about, but there are 167 crossings between downtown Miami and West Palm Beach. And there are another 160 between West Palm Beach and up to Cocoa. That is a lot of crossings, and not all of those are regularly used or have high traffic. And so we would ask that you do review your crossings to determine the potential for potential closure or for grade crossing separation. FDOT actually has a program for grade crossing separation, as does the FRA. And so there are federal funds, again, to study and then to ultimately construct those. I wanted to make it as short as possible. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you wanted to hear from SFRTA, answer questions at the end.
Well, real quick, the public comment is regarding Brightline specifically. All right.
Yes, it is regarding this presentation. I can read it now if you'd like.
Yes,
Madam
please.
Chair. This comment is from Ross Harness. And he says, Brightline and the rail lines are receiving millions to paint the road and put up signs alerting drivers and pedestrians of trains. But looking around to other examples at the effectiveness of paint and signs at altering driver behavior, we can see that these are not effective means of changing behaviors. In parentheses, he says, see speeding on just about every roadway in the county as an example. Looking around the world, you can see how others with more trains than we have deal with the issue. One that I have personally seen is more robust gates that come down and actually block the rails. Our gates are more akin to spaghetti noodles that don't do much. If rail safety is a priority for this county, we need to do better than slapping more paint on the ground to be ignored.
Thank you for reading that.
As I said, the Office of Research is happy to receive all of those ideas from the public to consider them.
Thank you.
I thank you so much, Ali. I really wanted to say thank you for coming again. I know you've come a few times to our board to share everything that Brightline is doing at and all the efforts and great news and the new things that we learned today that I didn't know. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll make sure we'll do a quiz with all of our board members later to make sure they go back and watch that, because that was really impactful. So thank you for coming and waiting. We appreciate it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize, Ally. You might need to wait 1 second. We have a
Yeah.
couple cards up.
First two simple things, those LED signs in Lake Worth they're amazing. And maybe a simple ask is, especially the ones on the southern end of town, if you could add Creole to those, because it's a
I'll I know they're very
they're
tight. on
tight, yeah.
space,
In
but I
smaller
will
font.
see if that is
Or
possible.
maybe rotating between the two. And the other thing, always keep us informed about opportunities for us to support grant applications for sure, because this is something that's really important to us. And that leads to the last thing I was going to say, which is, I don't know if everyone who has a bright line in their community, I don't know if we all feel this, but I feel like the incidents like Lake Worth is the epicenter for some reason, unfortunately. And even as recently as last week, I went to the supermarket, I came out, one of the trains was stopped right in front of the supermarket. And it's very unfortunate that, the assumption is we know what happened. And of course, later learned that driver did not make it. And I just want to say thank you. I know this is not an easy problem, and I see the comments and disparaging remarks and things like that. And I'm sure if you had a magic wand and you could find a thing that works for every community, it would be deployed tomorrow. But the progress is being seen, and it's really appreciative.
I appreciate that. If I may, again, the incidents that we see continue to be individuals engaging in very reckless, dangerous, and illegal behavior, like the one where this person went around cars and through the gates that were in the down position, right? And that behavior is dangerous, not only for that person, but for our guests, for the community, for the first responders that are now going to the scene. And so, we're again very grateful for the efforts of the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office in Lake Worth Beach, because they have been true partners of ours, again, doing these enforcement efforts on their own, getting out there and trying to help educate the community. So any ways that we can continue engaging in reducing the number of incidents, we're a partner at that. So thank you.
All right, we're going to go to Councilmember Drucker and then Mayor Weiss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ally. So as we get ready to go all aboard on Tuesday, which I'm very excited, thank you. We're all very excited in the city of Boca Raton. Of course, we've had conversations, you and I have met, and we've had phone conversations, and I could speak for myself, want to collaborate with Brightline on education, because I really think we've had this discussion recently. People need to understand that the train cannot stop abruptly if you're caught. And we had this conversation as a TPA last month or the month before about educating people. If you get stuck on the track, or if the light is turning, do you just take it, or do you stop? I think it's just a lot of education. So I appreciate you putting this out. I guess my one request is, as we get ready to open the Boca station next week, will you be coming out sometime, maybe at workshop, to present this and a mobility plan? I know that's going to also be coming down.
So a couple of things. We have already met with Boca Raton PD and with the city's communication department. And I know that as part of their help in helping us announce the exciting news that the Boca station is open, they are also going to help us get the word out about safety. And it will be an ongoing effort. What we've seen too is that an initial push works, but then sprinkling it in, continuous sprinkle in, helps to remind people of those safety tips. George did reach out and ask if we would be available to present at the next council meeting in January. I said yes, if those questions still exist. So yes.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
Yeah, congratulations, Boca. We can't wait to come out and support you. Well done, Brightline. All right, Mayor Weiss.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ally, and appreciate your presentation and all the efforts you all are making to try and keep our community safe, but understanding it is the community and the people that are making these decisions and not the trains. I really want to acknowledge your electronic signage that you've put in place. Excellent. What
Thank
a
you.
great addition to trying to keep people safe. I understand FRA is in the room here. Some things I've been thinking about, is, there should be a way, especially we have some very large areas in West Palm Beach, downtown West Palm Beach. You've got 3 tracks, and then you have a very short distance between that and the intersection at Quadrille and the signalization. And if there's anything that can be done, because the trains are known to be coming long before they actually arrive, to adjust those signals appropriately, because what happens is people go to move across the tracks, the light goes green. Because of this large distance, couple hundred feet, multiple cars will get over the top of the tracks. Somebody, maybe a pedestrian, is crossing, somebody's making a left turn, and all of a sudden everybody is stuck behind them. Obviously it's nerve-wracking for the drivers when that happens. And I just think that there's more that can be done. I noticed when I was at the Fort Lauderdale station, they were blessed by having much more distance between their intersection and where the rail lines are. We don't have that in West Palm Beach. So I think some additional ideas and things need to be looked at, and potentially camera technology, something to alert the train that there are people stuck on those tracks. Traffic gets backed up here during rush hour. And, you know, in those cases, it's a very difficult decision for them to figure out what to be doing and how to be doing it safely as they make those crossings. But I do appreciate everything you're doing, and definitely on the right track. And I can tell you, I will commit to doing everything I can to assist.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, actually count on this whole board to hand out pamphlets, whatever you need. I think we're all on board with you 100%. Thank you, Ally, for your time. We appreciate it. Next, we're going to have Victor Garcia, SFRTA's Director of Public Affairs. And by the way, we do have Rory Newton here from Railroad Safety Inspection. Come on up. I had a feeling you would. Come on up. Yes, please. So this is Rory Newton, Railroad Safety Inspector with Federal Road Administration.
Good morning. Madam Chairman, I'm Roy Newman, Federal Rail Administration. I'm a Railroad Safety Inspector. I'm assigned to the state of Florida. Mayor, just to address your concerns that the railroad crossings are interconnected with the traffic signals at each of these intersections. Almost, I don't think any of them are not. And the traffic signal side of the equation is actually maintained by the municipality or the agency that controls that road. Yeah, so if it's a city street, it's gonna be your city street department or public works that actually can set up the timing and how that interacts with the grade crossings. When the trains approach, they activate the grade crossing circuitry. When the gates actually and the lights actually turn on, the gates come down, is actually based off the speed of the train to give a minimum warning of 20 seconds. And at that time is when it engages the traffic signal controls. It just sends them a signal. The railroad does not have any control what happens after that. They just are obligated to provide them with a circuitry to activate the traffic lights. And they call it a preemption. And these are simultaneous preemption. So there is also known as an advanced, where it's more complicated, more expensive, of course, to give more time for the traffic signal to cycle and clear the traffic from the crossings. And that is a major component of the safety of a lot of these crossings, because pretty much all of them are T intersections or full intersections immediately after the grade crossing. So there is stuff in place. And if we're seeing an area where traffic is still building up, we have addressed with other communities where the neighboring traffic signal is actually the problem. And it might need to talk to the signal at the crossing better. So if we do see these issues, they are addressable, and it's not something that's unknown or not something that can't be fixed actually with a technology solution. So, thanks.
Thanks, Rory. All right, we're back where we started again. And Rory, thank you. Please do stick around. We appreciate you coming up. Victor Garcia.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Victor Garcia, Director of Public Affairs for SFRTA. And I'm accompanied, as you've already heard, from our Executive Director, Dave Deck, as well as our Director of Safety and Security, Marcus Thomas, who tomorrow will be 2 weeks on the job. So you'll be seeing more of him in the future. But I'm glad to share this presentation with you all this morning, and glad to have come after Allie, because she really covered a lot of what we're all doing, right? It's a lot of the same work, outreach, enforcement, and doing as much as we can on our railroad to make sure that it's safe. So yeah, Florida ranks number 3 in the nation in trespassing casualties and number 6 in highway road crossing collisions and second in deaths on those situations. So obviously a list that we do not like being a part of. And there's a lot of work that we have to do. So to talk about our corridor, it's we run 50 trains a day on weekdays, 30 on weekends. There's 2 Amtrak's a day, 34 CSX freight trains during the week. So it's a busy corridor. Along with 73 point, there's a type of 0.5 miles of track that SFRT dispatched. There are 72 road crossings and over a dozen different municipalities that we're dealing with. So again, you're hearing a lot of the same things as a community effort. Vehicle incursions and car stopping on the tracks continue to be the larger issues that we have due to the combination of efforts of things that you discussed earlier in your previous item about things happening on the roads and signs and stripes and all of these things. Right? These cause people confusion. Sometimes the proximity that we have to I-95 is a factor as people are coming off the ramp, and immediately there's tracks. Obviously, we have many tourists in the area that are unfamiliar with our roads, and sometimes even GPS sends them the wrong way. So not all road crossings are created equal, as I mentioned. You all are familiar with even roads themselves. So there's a lot of factors that contribute to this. So so there's that. Then there's also the trespassing, as you imagine, leads to even a higher rate when we have those, or serious injury, and in most cases a greater effect on all of us and all of those involved, not just us. So, and this is mostly caused by people seeking shortcuts, walking either across or alongside the tracks in areas that are not meant for pedestrians. And then obviously there's the case of those folks who actually seek to commit suicide by train, who generally enter at a crossing and linger in a secluded area, where they remain undetected. So we're fairly positive that besides these cases, there are many more violations that we don't even detect, and near misses, as we call it in the industry. But we can't be on every segment of the corridor. We can't track it. And even if we did have cameras, I mean, I went to FDOT's District 6 office, and they have the whole camera system there where you can actually see the roads. And we're talking about things that happen in a matter of seconds. So, a lot of these things will have to be really, it's on the folks who are actually on the road that we have to work on educating, make sure that they're doing the right things so we can actually avoid the problem. So let's go on to yes. None of us really appreciate talking about statistics. That's not necessarily the way that we like to see these things, but nevertheless, I put them on the screen for you. At the very least, I'm happy to say that we've begun to see sort of a decline in the last few years on incidents. So happy that our efforts are somewhat working. And excuse the pun, but it didn't happen by accident. It happened because there are things that we are doing. We're not just running trains. We're actually constantly looking for ways of how to run trains safer. Safety is number one in our yards for our crews. So this is something that's just ingrained in everything that we do. So for instance, and I'll I'm not going to rattle off everything that I've listed on you here, but I'm going to try to just talk about the ones where we worked in the county. For instance, there was a location, I think it was Lake Worth Beach that I heard the commissioner mention before. We were having major incidents of trespass in a specific area, and we installed some cut-resistant, non-scalable fence that resulted in no trespasser strikes in that area. So we were glad to see that. There was also something a really popular, as Ali mentioned before, and fairly easy improvement that we've been seeing is the installation of the plastic delineators. They actually work pretty well. And wherever we've installed them, they've decreased incursions about 95%. So, but that's not it. There's a lot more. And again, we're working on FDOT to make delineators a standard. No trespassing signs. We're going to be installing throughout the corridor, but in the first quarter of 2023, we actually have 6 Avenue in Lake Worth lined up to do. We're focusing a lot on right-of-way dumping and vegetation mediation, because that develops camps where there's people hanging around that we want to again avoid. And we've been working with code enforcement on 25th Street in Riviera Beach. And at Banyan Boulevard, we're conducting a shadow mode trial operation with technology that will help prevent pre-activations of the crossings. So we can try to prevent some of that, stop and go traffic. So that's just some of the things that we're doing specifically in the county. But again, it's all been done a lot through the partnerships that we had. FDOT has been our strongest supporter. In fact, we just came out of a 2-year grant that they awarded during the pandemic, which allowed us during a time that a lot of people were home on their devices for us to launch a digital campaign with these awesome videos that we actually are still using because we're able to continue to give them more life. On the screen, you'll also see a couple of pictures of some of the examples we did with our work with 211. These are posters on board the train, as well as along the corridor, reminding people that there's always someone that they can call for help when they're feeling helpless. So in that effort in particular, helped us receive an FIA grant over the summer to help us implement a new railroad suicide prevention program, which we'll be putting together in conjunction with our partners at 211. And we also, almost immediately after that, we received a car seat grant, 16.9 million to do some further improvements along the corridor. So as I said, it's needless to say that it takes the village to make this work, because I feel you understand this, because that's why you've engaged this particular topic. So on behalf of our SFRTA, I thank you for inviting us to share part of our story, for your support, and for working with us to make our community safer. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And just so you feel better, we do have a lot of folks watching online. You may not see all of your Board of Governors here right now, and we have a nice room behind you. Everyone's focused, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing that, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Victor. I echo Chair Reed's comments. I just wanted to mention, we really appreciate you coming today and sharing, both you and Ellie, sharing all these efforts that are happening. We still have over 30 people online. It's recorded. I know we've lost some people because it's a long meeting, but we really appreciate it.
Great, you got it.
Yeah, it just means we'll have to meet more often. Okay, I don't see any comments from my board, so thank you guys so much. I'm really excited now to bring item B, which is our Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7 multimodal corridor study. TPA staff and consultants are providing us this update, so we're inviting Brian Rusher, our TPA Deputy Director of Multimodal, and our consultants to present at this time. Hi.
Yeah. Good morning still, Mayor Reed and board. Thank you all for sticking it out with us and waiting so long to hear about this item. I truly appreciate it. And for those who are listening online, thank you for continuing to listen in on the conversation. I wanted to start on a conversation of safety, especially for Okeechobee Boulevard. Just in the past week, 3 people have died on Okeechobee Boulevard alone. In the past week, 3 people have died on Okeechobee Boulevard alone. So this is touching a somber note, but it's also timely given the conversations that we've had. And with that, I'd like to just say that this presentation really culminates into a lot of work, which is being completed by our consultants and by TPA staff as well along these 2 major corridors. I'm joined today by Mr. Stuart Robertson, John Lafferty, JP Westner, Jessica Jocelyn, and Anna Maria DeMello from our consultant team, who have culminated over 1,000 pages of work on this corridor. So with that, let's get into the details. So Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7 is a 13.5-mile corridor between the Wellington Mall, north on State Road 7, eastward over to Okeechobee Boulevard, as depicted on the screen. This is a visioning study, which looks at lots of different ways to get around within Palm Beach County. But most importantly, I think we need to think also about the region. Okeechobee Boulevard is one corridor within the Tri-County area, which is dramatically growing. The numbers that you see on the screen is that the Tri-County area was projected to grow from 5.9 million to 7.5 million just in our 2045 long-range transportation plan. Our 2050 contract was approved earlier by this board, and we are looking forward to getting that study underway. We expect these numbers to dramatically be different and obviously in an upward trajectory. Why are we looking at Okeechobee Boulevard in a multimodal corridor study fashion? First and foremost, this was identified and prioritized by the governing board to be a long-range transportation plan corridor within the 561 plan. As shown on the screen, there are a number of people that are going to be moving throughout all of the 561 corridors if within a 2-mile buffer, accounting for about 95% of all the non-farm jobs and about 68% of the entire county's population. So within this blue hashing alone, that's incredibly important. Also of note, our partner here at Palm Tran has also identified and prioritized these corridors for consideration and study. And then lastly, this is a growing corridor with competing demands. Within 2 miles of the corridor, there are about 220,000 residents, and that number is going to grow within the 1 mile buffer from the 2015 numbers to the 2045 numbers. So I'll let our consultants start diving into more detail. We'll have JP take it away. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thanks again to everyone for sticking around. When we look at multimodal corridor studies, we have a sort of series of lenses that we look at. And one of the first things is, how do we maximize the corridor throughput using a transit first lens? How does transit help us maximize corridor throughput? We look at the first and last mile safety aspects. We want to increase access to affordable housing, education, healthcare, jobs. We want to utilize existing right of way to have cost saving efficiencies with whatever the project might be. And we also want to identify opportunities for redevelopment and infill. And so why transit? Back to Brian's point about a growing corridor with competing demands. I think 97% of people traveling through the corridor do so via automobile. And when we think about that, right, we have constraints. We have constraints within the right of way. We have constraints with the Atlantic Ocean on one side, with Everglades on the other. And how are we going to move more people, those people that we talked about coming, how are we going to move them through this corridor? Well, there's a very kind of simple spatial aspect of this, right? You can move more people with transit than you can with a single vehicle. And when we start to think about what does that mean for people traveling in the corridor, it's about reliability. It's about guaranteeing a certain amount of reliability as you need to move through and get to your daily needs as you move through the corridor. So what did we hear? This project was not done in a vacuum. We had a very robust public engagement process. We had websites, we had public meetings, we had workshops, and we actually went out into the corridor and we met with folks. We rode the bus. We talked to people at transit stops. We talked to people walking down the sidewalk and heard about their experiences and what they were going through. And kind of coming out of that, began to really understand what those needs for the corridor were and how we wanted to address that. And so the first part of this will be, how did we begin to think about it related to the modal alternatives? And with that, I'll hand it to Stuart Robertson to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Stuart Robertson with Kimley Horn, and also have John Lafferty from Kimley Horn, who was very instrumental in the transit analysis for the project. We looked at 7 total alternatives. First is the no build or no change alternative. Anytime we perform a transit analysis such as this, we always start with analyzing what would be the case if no changes were made to the corridor. Then there were 4 alternatives that were associated with bus transit. Those are the ones highlighted in green on this slide. And then finally, 2 alternatives for rail transit. And because of the very high importance of this corridor, we analyzed not only transportation, but also socioeconomic, land use, and health impact analysis concerns for the corridor. So the preferred ultimate vision for the corridor would be for center running dedicated lane light rail transit, or LRT. This alternative would repurpose 1 travel lane in each direction to become an LRT lane in the center of the roadway. This alternative also includes enhancing the multimodal facilities along the corridor, such as through protected bike lanes, would add lighting along the corridor, and also park and ride lots at certain key transfer stations in order for people to be able to more easily access the corridor that may not live within walking distance of the corridor. This alternative also maximizes meeting the goals that we established at the beginning of the process. So in terms of why the center running dedicated lane LRT was chosen as the preferred ultimate vision, there were several reasons that we detailed within the documentation. One is trip reliability. What we have seen on Okeechobee is that travel times are going up and up as more cars try to use the roadway. This is forecasted to continue into the future. And the trip reliability, meaning like the difference between the amount of time it takes someone to drive the corridor on one day versus the next day, is also beginning to increase as congestion increases. With the center running dedicated lane LRT, we would be able to offer travelers a reliable trip time. The analysis, the models that we use are currently predicting that that would be 38 minutes from one end of the corridor to the other. And that would be a reliable trip travel time every day. So as congestion increases along the corridor, the transit, people that choose to ride transit would have a reliable trip time to get into downtown West Palm Beach. Also, the health impact analysis, as I mentioned, quantifies some of the benefits of this particular alternative related to things like injury, related to things like the air quality benefits, and also public health benefits related to having more active transportation. So there are several reasons that are documented in the report as to why this would be the ultimate vision. The graphic on the right here kind of illustrates a station location along the corridor. All stations would be accessed by signalized pedestrian crosswalks. As well as you can see the protected bicycle lanes that are shown on the outside of the corridor.
So in concert with looking at what all transportation alternatives could happen through the corridor, a unique part of this study was we also took a look at how will the land use respond to that, and how can it help sort of kind of dovetail into transit ridership and that kind of a thing. And what we looked at was what's called transit-oriented design or transit-oriented development, TOD. And at its heart, TOD is a compact growth pattern that focuses on walkability, on livability, and it looks at the land and it says, what's our actual utilization of this land? How are we looking at this? So when we look at Okeechobee today, we have a lot of suburban land use patterns, right? We have a lot of big car lots, we have a lot of setback buildings. A lot of those aspects of the land use contribute to both the driving environment, but also the poor pedestrian and transit environment. And so if we can begin to imagine what are some of those changes that start to happen as land use changes, as we bring in different kinds of mixed uses, we build them up to the street, we begin to add in ancillary and parallel network, we begin to change intersections to be more walkable. As transit's coming, it starts to transform that place into a different kind of a vision, and it's focused around these transit nodes. So we're actually supporting the transit with the land use, and we're putting people that will use the transit where, in addition to the people that need to use it today, where they'll live, work, and play kind of within these core growth areas. And so more specifically, the overall TOD, again, looks at connected streets, walkability, mixed use infill, robust open space and parks. And I just want to note that Okeechobee as a corridor and State Road 7 probably has seen most of its development since, the early 80s. And that puts it, a lot of development happened in the late 70s and early 80s, which is before some stormwater quality laws. And so a lot of properties that are out there today have trouble redeveloping because they need to meet that stormwater requirement, and they can't without some sort of incentive to redevelop. So as part of, again, this study, we looked at what are those locations where we would envision stations to be, and what does redevelopment look like within a quarter mile or a half mile of those stations. And we looked at things like what we call underutilized land, where the building value and the land, the building value is less than a percentage of the overall building and land value. And that's kind of a market or a tool that many developers use as whether or not it makes more sense to clear a site and rebuild it than to just rehab a building. And when we can clear a site, then we can begin to put in the right infrastructure in its place. And so we looked at that, we looked at vacant properties, and we actually did a lot of outreach with communities, Royal Palm Beach, Wellington, City of West Palm, Palm Beach County, about projects that were also going on. We also reached out to developers. What are some things, where is their energy happening? So we could get an idea of what sites might be these kind of catalyst sites. And then we began to look at all of them and said, well, what does that look like? And tally up what some of that potential impact could be over, say, a 25 to 30 year period. And the example here is State Road 7, and with a transit station here, with the LRT and with redevelopment, we could envision 1,300 new homes. Roughly 200 of those are affordable, just based on sort of a 15% affordable housing, 5,600 new jobs, And one of the key things, back to the land utilization that I talked about, is an additional 632 million of ad valorem taxes that could be pulled from the property taxes of the properties today. And so to touch on that a little bit more, we actually looked at what's the current value of the land today and how is it functioning and how is it sort of being catalyzed for redevelopment, or what's happening with it. What does that look like when we apply kind of the light rail transit model to it? And we kind of looked at low, high, and medium rates, and are showing within the report and on this graph kind of the median rate of, with that, what kind of development would happen and what would that do to change the value of land there? And this is an important piece because it's an economic aspect, but when you look at some of the best walkable places like downtown West Palm or downtown Lake Worth or downtown Boca, that utilization of land is very high. It matches what you see on the right of this graph. Where that utilization is very low tends to be a very sort of singular kind of environment, very car-based, very suburban-based. And so we want to kind of change that. And with that change comes a different vision of what that future could be. And so again, what does Congress Avenue look like today? It's a big roadway. There's, lots of vehicles. There's lots of right-in, right-outs, lots of turning happening. And what could we begin to see? What does that look like in the future at this node with a light rail transit? Military Trail. Again, we were out there. Guys, has the sign flipping around. People have to cross that length in a single signal cycle from a pedestrian standpoint. What does that begin to look like when denser development is brought in, that's built up to the street, and we have a more walkable and bikeable condition on the street? And keep in mind, in many of these cases, there's still 6 lanes of roadway travel moving through on these sections, in addition to the light rail happening here. Jog Road. What does that begin to look like? Right now, it's nearly impassable, but there is an opportunity for mid-block crossings, for other opportunities for crossings as they relate to those stations, as well as the introduction of things like open space. Again, this is another a view of the State Road 7 one, where the line would turn to head south or east on Okeechobee, or south on State Road 7 as it heads towards Wellington. And then again, within the loop, or what were they calling it? The oval of around the Wellington Mall, what would a station look like there? And just really a complete transformation of what that could be. Right now, it's a bus stop around fields of parking. With infill development, with something like this catalyst, we could start to see a lot of development happening around there and really make a truly walkable, visionary kind of a place that we want to see happen. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Brian to close us out.
Thank you, JP. And just to close out this presentation, the ultimate vision must be realized through many partners. It has to be implemented with both the Department of Transportation, our transit providers, and we have to really build upon and implement projects that are currently in the work program for transit riders today. We want to build that transit base that would be supportive of a long LRT vision in our future. We have those programmed already for both transit signal priority and enhanced stations. We've already been working with Royal Palm Beach, Wellington, and the city of West Palm Beach on land use and economic development recommendations. We'll continue to share those recommendations with them. We'll continue working with them to implement some of the land use changes that are recommended within this report. And then lastly, to further analyze and refine with our partners what this study will look like and what will mean for all of the entities involved. We have already seen the draft tentative work program presented today, which includes a $2 million study in fiscal year 2025 for the Okeechobee Boulevard, and all of the partners to work together collaboratively on what that would look like. After that report is completed, it will be brought back to the TPA governing board and the stakeholders to have a further look. With that, the study is available at palmbeachtpa.oklstudy.org. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate everyone sticking around. I'll take any questions.
I just want to chime in. Thank you so much to everybody who participated. Great presentation. Thank you to the entire team, for Brian to helping us taking this across the finish line, but the entire consultant team. This has been an effort we've been working on. It is one of the 561 planned corridors in our long range transportation plan, and we plan to look at the other corridors in similar fashion. There's so much more to the study that could be covered in this presentation, including a health impact assessment that was mentioned, and everyone who participated in that. This is a vision study, so it's like an ultimate vision of what this corridor could be. as Brian mentioned, we have to work with all the partners, both private, public, our transit agency, FDOT. It is an FDOT road. So that next step is that feasibility alternatives analysis from FDOT and potentially a phased approach to that ultimate vision. But this is the first step to that. And we're really excited. And as was mentioned earlier in today's meeting, the Western communities really need a scapegoat, a way in and out, and other options to get around. And that what we saw as a potential vision and economic driver for a live, work, play situation at that corner of State Road 7 and Okeechobee and potentially the Wellington Mall. That could be a location that looks similar to Meisner Park or Rosemary Square, where it could be you get there somehow a first last mile circulator or park and ride or live there, and you have connections to the rest of the region, not only in our county, but this connects to the rest of the region, to Broward and Miami, who have actually a local funding source to make this, to make the network advancing their corridors that connect to this network. So very exciting. And thank you to everyone who participated.
All right, gentlemen, stay close by because we do have public comment. We have a card up and I have a comment myself. So Amanda, if you could read the public comment, please.
This public comment is from Ross Harness. And it states, the last update I've seen of a timeline for the Okeechobee project is 10 years. Is there any way to bring this timeline up? Traffic is a growing problem, and a lack of frequent and reliable alternative forms of transportation are badly needed as the county continues to grow. But 10 years is too long to wait to begin to see improved public transit in the county. Okeechobee Boulevard is currently 6 lanes and we already have the buses. In the meantime, please consider prioritizing buses on Okeechobee in their own lane with much more frequent service as a more permanent solution is developed. This can show county residents how this can work and gain vital public support for the project before spending millions of dollars and years of construction. Also, the pedestrian bridge and tunnel ideas need to be scrapped as they target symptoms of the traffic problem instead of the actual problem.
Okay, excellent comment, Valerie.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Great comment. And actually, we are working with Palmtran. We have prioritized funding in the next couple of years for enhanced transit shelters along the corridor for the current existing service, as well as transit signal priority to improve efficiency and electric buses. So we do have improvements planned and underway for committed for funding in the next couple of years. So very excited about that. And also we will be looking in and having a workshop for everyone's ideas and alternatives for the downtown gateway of Okeechobee and downtown to look at those different alternatives of how to handle the in and out of and flow of people in downtown. So thank you for that comment. One more thing. Because the funding's so far out for a vision like this, one of the things that our county will have to, and all our residents and public-private sectors will have to really grapple with is if we are ready for a funding source for a commitment to a local surtax, because to make something like this happen and any enhanced transit service improvements happen, we will need a local funding source in the future. Maybe 2024 or 2026, but Broward and Miami-Dade counties have made that commitment. We can help prioritize the capital dollars to make this happen, but we can't without a local funding source for something so transformational. So that's a conversation to continue.
All right, excellent. Amanda, do we have any other comments?
No, sorry.
No, that's great. No worries. That's wonderful. And we'll move on to Ronaldo Diaz, our commissioner. Has your card up?
Yeah, it's exciting. TOD is obviously the future, and it's probably really early to ask this question, but I'm really curious, like what is the per mile cost of a light rail, and how does that compare to something like a dedicated bus lane? Especially, what got me thinking was how last meeting we learned about electric buses on the way, and would love to kind of see that comparison.
I'm going to ask John Lafferty, our transit planner, to respond to your question.
John Lafferty, Kimley Horn, Commissioner. Again, want to just preface, this was a high-level concept study and vision. And so we did prepare some initial capital cost estimates in looking at light rail transit. It was around a 600 to 800 million capital cost that we had initially estimated based upon the preliminary work that we did. And that's certainly a much larger investment that you typically see with a bus rapid transit. predominantly because of the different type of infrastructure that's required and the work that is necessary. Again, we're creating a fixed guideway with rail, with stations that do have a much larger capital investment, and furthermore, the vehicles themselves. But again, you know, when we are out in the community and interfacing with a number of stakeholders and public at large, there was that preference of having that type of fixed investment, from looking at it of how certain areas throughout the corridor can be transformed based upon the different redevelopment opportunities that are currently there today and what's being foreseen in the future.
JP Wiesner with Kittleson Associates. I wanted to follow up with that. We kind of a best practice sort of from nationwide experience shows there is sort of a correlation between the type of mode of transit and the amount of TOD potential development. So, you know, something like a bus rapid transit or an express bus might have a lower return on investment from the TOD side, whereas something more permanent like a light rail has a higher. That said, you know, one of the reasons why this study in its sort of advanced phase, you know, where we are with it, looked at land use, and that is because another lesson learned is transit systems that folks try to implement where it's sort of siloed in just the transit piece, just the ability to bring that mode in, they fail because from funding, from, you know, overruns on cost. Where we kind of dovetail in things like the land use aspect and generating for at least local municipalities, things like TIF districts that capitalize on that development that's going to come, that money can either be used as debt service to capital improvements. It can also help with operation maintenance over time. And so with that, you end up kind of getting your financial situation dovetailed into your land use and transportation piece. And all of those things are kind of working together in addition to, at least at this stage in the process, getting your policies and your other incentives in place. So all of these things kind of tie together for a successful system. You know, we were, you know, the lane mile costs that, you know, we're talking about, you know, again, in that big picture, when we look at what the land could provide at a higher utilization, it really becomes a sort of equal kind of footing of that investment and what the return could be on that. So wanted to add that.
Thank you, JP. I just want to also mention the ultimate vision of light rail, as it is more expensive than a BRT, than a bus rapid transit. But again, it is shown to have more commitment from the private sector because it's such a big investment. They're willing to also invest. So we are, as part of this process and over the next couple of years, also looking to our peers, looking at what are they doing. One of our peers, we're doing a peer exchange with Phoenix or with Austin, but also looking at Phoenix. They actually did when they implemented light rail, it was $2 billion, but they had $12 billion worth of redevelopment investment in 10 years. So they've had great success. But also one of the things that we've seen from our peers is that in the conversation of potentially passing a surtax in the future for that would, you know, that if the county were to pass one that would help fund the operations and maintenance, usually you have to have a mix of BRT and buses, but also potentially a light rail in that package for the voter population to really buy in. And again, it is that ultimate vision. BRT could happen first, or there could be intermediate thing that happens. So just wanted to throw that in.
All right. I don't see any other cards or any other information. So I could have listened to that for hours. That was the most wonderful, wonderful presentation. Just the idea of moving people safely, efficiently with incorporating land use and affordable housing. That's like the best song of someone like us could hear. And the presentation was extraordinary. I can't imagine folks not embracing this. I know change isn't easy, but when we talk about safety, access, all the things that we're looking for, this seems a really worthy solution. So thank you for taking the time for the very clear presentation that I will make sure that our board gets in their inbox and reviews, and perhaps we'll even do another sort of a presentation again, because this is really impactful and important. So we might have to ask you guys back to some level, or Brian, you did a great job. Maybe you could represent it to the board, because I don't want it to get lost in any way, shape, or form.
Be happy to, Mayor.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else? We're good? All right. Do we have any other partner updates? Clinton, do you want to go ahead and put a bus lane in the middle now or?
I just want to have the name and contact information. That was an excellent comment from the public related to public transit. And we know that the public is eager to do something now. You know, this process takes time. It takes planning and it takes money. But I want you to know that Palm Tran is working on a daily basis to improve the public transit system now with the means that we currently have in our coffers. I mean, we can't make a huge leap in terms of improving transit. So I support Ms. Nielsen's comment with respect to, you know, garnering the support of the business community, our elected officials, the overall public to support an initiative in the near future to have a dedicated source of funding like Miami-Dade and Broward. That'll be a game changer for public transit in this community.
Well, personally, I look forward to helping support you in that endeavor as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there any other partner agencies that wish to present? All right. I think we're done.
Just administrative items unless someone wants to pull that. That's it. Our next meeting is February 6th.
Yep. Okay. So yes, you're losing your voice officially. So the next meeting is February 16th, as we have no January meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your patience.